meeting for Tuesday, May the 7th. Roll call, it looks like all offices are represented except District 2. Has anybody heard anything from District 2? Okay. We will go ahead and begin though. Notice the meeting was properly posted on May the 6th. Item number 1, discussion possible action regarding the minutes of April 24th and April 25th.
Move to approve.
Second. Got a motion to approve the minutes of April 4th and April 25th. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Yeah, I love the exuberance this morning. That was a chorus of ayes. Item 2, discussion possible action regarding an update on employee benefits. Mr. Wilkerson. Hey, Brandy.
I tried to, can you wait? Cancel it. Can you bring the one up that looks like that?
We're just gonna have to click there because I'm not sure
That's
which
fine,
one.
that's fine. Sorry. One more. Yeah, it has to be the last one, that one.
The one that says that we're gonna be perfectly fine and
Are you
You
serious?
got $1 million.
need to keep going if it's not the right document.
Oh. We'll start with this one. We'll wait for her to get it.
You need a motion to accept. Is there enough here for the clerk?
There should be, yeah.
All right, do we have a motion to receive the document?
So moved.
Second. Debate. Got a motion, second. You want to debate?
Yeah.
Okay.
All these records for years have been included in the records that the clerks keep. What this motion does, the cathartic effect, is it requires them to go through each motion to record, and it's not an automated process. It's unnecessary. We really just need to give direction to the clerk, which they do now, to record these documents part of the record. I found instances where they voted to receive something that was not in the record because nobody provided it. It seems that it's kind of a perfunctory motion, a reflex. I think it would be fine. I don't care. It's funny for me, but for the staff to not have to record every single time we receive a document, a formal vote on it, which is the only place I've found that does that, would be just to have some kind of a standing understanding or a process by where the chair just asks that it be made a part of the record without objection or something like that, so the staff doesn't have to spend an inordinate amount of time recording individual votes on the matter.
Aaron, do you see any issue with that?
It's not a legal issue.
Okay, that's what I thought. Does anybody have any issue with that? I think what Mr. Nelson is proposing would be when a document that's not attached to the agenda, such as this, is handed out, I or whoever the chair would be would just make a statement without objection. This document will be received into the record, and if somebody does have an objection to this being in the record, then they would voice that objection, and then we would have discussion and potential vote individually on that. Is that what you're?
So would this process be streamlined amongst all of our meetings now? Like all of the meetings? With elected officials, everybody else, every other committee?
Well, it being here, I don't know, every other board would have to do whatever it decides to do.
So this is just something that T does?
Well, no, every board makes this motion, but
That's what I'm saying.
we can only affect what happens with this board.
Right, but is it your intention to streamline this process among all the boards and
That'd be
committees?
nice, but we'll just take baby steps and see if we can do it in here first.
So let me ask one question. I think my main concern was for the general public. When they go to pull up an agenda and look at minutes, but it sounds like this is
I think there would
This will
still
be
be a
in the record.
notation in the record that the chair moved to have the
Document
the
received
document
into the
received.
record.
I think what it would
Now, are those
do,
documents linked to the minutes?
No.
no, they're in
So the
the,
general public can't see, when we're supposed to be open and transparent,
well, they,
general government can't see.
they could
Have
still,
them available if they would like to request them.
So they'd have to say this agenda, this item, whatever was handed out.
So that after that.
which is what they have to do now.
Yeah, but at least there's, yeah, that's fine. As long as there's something in the minutes, and this sounds like a good fix, if it saves a couple steps of typing, you know,
Saves a lot of
chairman
time.
receives versus motion and you know.
Yeah,
That's
and that's,
fine.
that's
As long
kind of
as
what I
it's-
thought, was that it saves a couple steps and everything, but talking to Cassie about what she has to actually do when we receive a document and noting everybody's vote and everything,
That's fine.
I think it would be, according to Cassie, would be very helpful for her. I think it's kind of a slight modification to what we do.
I think it's a good compromise.
Yeah.
I really do. I just thought it was an all or nothing, and it's like, well, we need something in the record that something was passed out in addition to what you see on the agenda.
We
So-
would still notate that something was passed out, just like
Okay.
he said, we would put, chair receives document into the record. We would put that on there. And that, or documents into the record, that would,
It'd be without, be recorded as, it was, that
There
was
was
done,
something.
because in the absence of any objection, it was added to the record.
That's.
So you can still see that something was added.
There's some notation in there, I think that if it saves some time.
I'm like, you guys want something to public.
Yeah.
You know, to ask for something additional.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not-
like, okay, this item I'm really interested in, more was,
Each,
sent
And it-
out that I could ask.
And it does solve the problem that I was aware of, I guess, a long time ago. Somebody came in demanding that something be added to the record, which was some nonsense, I guess. And that was I guess, by having this motion, they were able to keep some kind of inane ramblings that had been written down from becoming part of the record. So that would still work because somebody could object to it. They need to have a formal action, not bringing some nonsense into the record.
So do we need a motion for this?
let's go ahead and do that, please. I just want a record that everybody
know,
is
yeah.
cool with this, and then we can move forward. So, will somebody, who made the motion to receive this document?
Colton.
Colton, would you like to rescind your motion to receive the document?
I will rescind my motion to receive document.
Is everybody comfortable with me on this document and moving forward, receiving documents handed out just by a declaration of the chair and no objection by members of the group?
Just don't let that power go to your head.
It's too late.
It's dangerous.
It's not this.
Hey, you know my uncomfort with this because I told you, and you
I know, that's why I'm saying that. That's,
Do you need to make any notification as to where it came from or what item it's tied to for the agenda?
We do all of that on the back end.
But also making sure, because I have had this problem where I went back, pulled up old minutes, tried to find those documents, and they were never provided. Somebody either had them, didn't hand out the copy or something. So if we can make sure the clerks actually get a copy of whatever it is that we're wanting to have as part of the record, that'd be.
Aaron, is this something that's sufficiently actionable on our agenda? Yeah, we can do that, okay. All right, is there a motion? As to what I mentioned?
Yeah,
that
so
We'll
moved.
make that change, okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. All right, without objection, the chair will ask the clerk to make the handed out document a part of the record. You already have it, so. All right. John?
You ready?
Yep.
Okay.
Why not?
The first report I'll go over, just as my standard report I do monthly for everyone, just to show year to date where we were at with medical claims and prescription claims and some of the reimbursements. This is through the meeting tomorrow. Claims will be paid tomorrow versus the same time last fiscal year. So through tomorrow, through 5/8, we've had 45 weeks of paid medical claims. That's a weekly average of 366,000. Through 5/10 of the same period last fiscal year, we paid $16,663,000 for $370,000 average. So pretty close, pretty close to last fiscal year. Towards the end of the last fiscal year, we had a big stop off, claim come through, so claims kind of got pumped up. But that's our average pay for last fiscal year, $391, because those big claims that came through at the end of the fiscal year. Prescriptions, kind of the same deal. This is actually, so this fiscal year we paid 49 weeks of prescription claims, average of 210,000 per week. Same period last fiscal year, 236, so we're trending down on that. If you looked at our changes, I keep these updated. Since 7/1, since retirees moved, we're averaging 202,000 a month versus 236. Since prescription change, we're averaging 200,000 a month versus 236. So we're seeing some positive changes. This fiscal year, again, we just paid many more weeks of claims. Our averages are going down. So overall, we're about.
Wait, you said 210, 202, and 200 per month. Those are per week, right?
Per week, I'm sorry. Yes, per week, correct. If you just take the total med plus prescription, we're about $24,000 over where we were last fiscal year at this point. The biggest thing on the bottom is reimbursements. We've had way less ARPA reimbursements, less money in the door. So overall net paid, we're about $1.4 million over just because of those less ARPA reimbursements through the door. And then I have a report to follow this up to bring you through the end of the fiscal year to tell you what we kind of need just based on estimates to get through this year. Here's this one too.
What's it look like?
Is this what it looks like this? Or is that second to last one?
This one?
Without objection, the chair will ask the clerk to make this document part of the record. That flows well, Jason.
Okay, this second handout is a snapshot of where we are at currently to get through the rest of the fiscal year. So these dates represent board meetings where claims have to be paid on, represent a BOCC meeting. These estimate the expenses left for May. If you'll hold down a little bit. So expenses, 1.7 million. May revenue, I got that from finance, 1.2 million. So it looks like we're gonna need about $419,000 additional to get through May. Calculating out what we have. And overall, if you remember, my first estimate was about 2.2 million. I think we're gonna be about exactly on the dot with 2.2 million. If you go down to June and scroll down, this is just the expenses that we have to pay by meeting date in June, $2.6 million. Just the regular revenue that comes in, excluding any refunds or anything special, just the known revenue. It's gonna be 1.8. That'll leave a difference of about $807,000, and that's just based on averages. With the May amount and the June amount combined, that's 1.226 million. We've already transferred $1 million, so that'd be a total of $1.226 million if we do indeed need that. So, of course, things can change going into June, but May looks, compared to averages, looks like that's what it's going to be. So, any questions on that?
I mean, I guess my question is, what is the thought to get through May? We don't have an agenda item on here to have a recommendation to budget board to.
So we'll have to
supplement
have,
funding.
probably have a special meeting to request if we need an agenda item. I think part of it, you know, I mean, we don't need it right now, but we'll have to have a special meeting to put it on.
I would suggest when we get to item 3, we can at least add it to the watch list. We can do it on there.
Much of what will come in this fiscal year have you anticipated would be pushed to the next fiscal year?
So-
Any of this, or is it?
That's a great question. So if you'll scroll down a little bit, so we can see all of June. So snapshot of June, we could potentially push the prescription claims that would need to be paid on June 26th. This is for the period of July 1st through July 15th. We prepay for part of it. We could push that $250 into July 1st if we had to. We could possibly push some of the medical claims too, that $366 if we had to. In June,
Wasn't it the third week that we have to pay?
usually, but it just depends on what's on there. So we can push some of it on through. If you look to May, but this is just kind of, if you scroll down, or scroll up, sorry, there we go. We could possibly push that last check register in May into June. And just kind of push it forward, but it's just pushing expenses forward, you know, so
So that,
It's really just what we can push to next fiscal year.
That 1.2 million, if we were able to figure a way to cover that, we would have everything paid in this fiscal year, nothing would roll forward.
if everything comes based on the average, yes, sir.
How much do we roll forward from this last fiscal year into this year? Do you
I
remember?
don't have that in front of me.
Okay, I can't remember.
2 or 3 weeks, quite a bit, right?
Some of the prescription claims, yes, I didn't bring that with me.
Yeah, don't worry.
So it's kind of a different situation with the prescription claims now. We used to pay based on our actual, and since we have a smaller company, they pre-bill us for 2 weeks, and we pay them upfront, and they bill us for the difference after those 2 weeks. So when we were with CVS Caremark, they would just send us an invoice for the 2 weeks, pay this. Now we kind of prepay part of the 2 week period.
Regardless of the figure, is it pretty, or historically, do we roll things into the next fiscal year?
Not
It's
usually.
not usually, so
Not usually.
last year was kind of an outlier.
Yeah, we had a big year, especially on the prescription side. We pushed, so that, and if you'll push, go back to that last spreadsheet that I just handed out. So this is kind of tells the story. This fiscal year, we paid 49 weeks of prescription claims. Last fiscal year, we paid 43 weeks for this period, so you'll know we pushed, you know, maybe
There's
a
been
month
other years
forward.
where we pushed
Yeah, we
stuff.
pushed
forward
Yeah.
too.
a little more often than.
Yeah. But if the thought is to try to make up that difference to push some of this into next fiscal year, when we're looking at setting a budget for employee benefits for next fiscal year, we've got to consider the amounts that we're pushing so that we don't wind up flat-footed this time next year.
What is, and maybe I'm just missing them, what good does pushing this stuff into the next fiscal year do?
I guess if you don't have any
If you just
budget
don't have
for
the
it
money.
now, it's just pushing it forward.
So then you're like, I mean, I just
Good
feel like
is that you
we're
don't have
doing
the money. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
it's not good or bad, it's if you don't have the revenue, because we only have, another $600,000 in reserve. If we need to find $1 million, $1.2 million,
but if you start that way, then am I to understand
What's
that
the bad?
every month you're just, for lack of a better term, kiting that? I mean,
Yeah.
just.
yeah, that's exactly it.
Creative funding charge.
Adaptive transfers. They will come up with a good euphemism for it. Profit taking.
Well, hopefully, if we do need to go that direction, it's something that we could shore up at September supplement with additional funding into there. But we're gonna need to take, and we've all talked about this, take a little bit different look and approach maybe on how we're funding, whether it's just employer and employee rates, or whether it's, front funding all of that instead of monthly, so that employee benefits is getting what we're anticipating them getting for the year. I think we're gonna need to get creative on how we fund that.
I was just asking for cash flow reasons, not as a policy
Yeah.
matter, so, yeah, I agree.
Because without that, we're back to past the hat.
Well, we're probably gonna be there anyway,
That's like where
with
they're
only
at.
607,000.
Well, according to John, if this all plays out, then we would have, if we use reserve, then that would leave 600,000. And he had mentioned, if we push May medical into June, and then we were able to push those medical and prescription, the 366 and the 250, we're at the 600,000. So we may be able to push enough to be able to make up that difference.
It is mildly alarming though that in 2 fiscal years,
Mm-hmm.
if we're gonna be able to roll over 17,000 and then probably nothing this year.
I think it'd be definitely okay to push the 250. You're gonna pay them, you're basically paying them on
The last meeting
the
day, yeah.
last meeting day, and we can do it the very next meeting. And it is really for the next fiscal year, and then, I wouldn't wipe out every penny out of a reserve. I'd get it down, take 650 off or something and leave. What's that?
What part of, is the pharmacy part, or part of the payment is a prepayment? Okay. So
So
some of that
You're
would,
prepaying for the first half of July, so,
So it's not really pushing that anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a week, it's
And,
the 26th of June to the
and then on
next.
that last medical claims register, we've done this before. If there's certain claims that have to be paid, we can split those off and hold the rest that are just regular doctor office visits and push them a couple weeks.
Because they'll turn around and meet on July 1st, right? BOCC being the first Monday.
But then, I don't know if the funds are encumbered yet or there to pay, in the new fiscal year. I don't know what day they become available in
I think
July.
we vote on it and budget board accepts it. I think they're in place on July 1.
Okay. As long as the funds are available to.
Cash
They have to
part.
encumber and pay
Yeah,
on
that
the
would be-
board meeting, and I know there's several processes.
Usually that first day, BOCC will recess until later in the afternoon so that blankets and whatnot can be established, and then they'll come back, so,
Just gotta make sure the cash is there.
yeah.
it was mentioned earlier that the need to have a special meeting to deal with this. Why would we need to do that? We've got a meeting now.
There's no-
We don't have an
An
agenda
agenda
item on here. Now, we can have a special BET,
Why not?
next Tuesday or something to be able to discuss that.
To actually move money, I don't think we've got an item on the files to do that.
We don't.
We have employee benefits on the watch list.
I think we use that up.
Zero it out.
Well, and even if we do, we still need an agenda item that would be to recommend transfer from reserve to employee benefits for whatever amount.
Now, the item we're on, it is discussion and possible action regarding employees' benefits.
So you could,
I don't think that's broad enough.
Specific
Aaron,
enough?
is that broad enough to?
You have the agenda up.
It says discussion, possible action regarding any items currently on the BET watch list.
No, the
The one before that.
employee benefits.
Number 4, or number 2.
Or either one,
Yeah.
would either one work?
number 2 or number
Well,
one?
I'm
Number
willing
2
to
is
understand.
just regarding an update, so I
Yeah,
don't.
that won't work, but
Yeah.
I'm looking at number 3, which is possible action regarding any items currently on a BET watch list. It's on the watch list.
Well, we used that up last month. That $1 million is off there now, I believe, right?
Well, the $1 million off there, but employee benefits is on there.
Zeroed out, yeah.
Okay,
Oh, so yeah, it's on there.
I see what you're saying.
Does the agenda still have the definition, the broad definition of action?
Yeah.
I think you're fine.
Okay.
Well, I'd move to recommend transfer from the reserve account in the amount of $419,548.55 to employee benefits.
Just to give your name.
Until we get to the next regular meeting.
We kind of get a bit better picture of where we're at going into June.
Well, at least
Things
think
might
that
change.
much. I mean, we're,
Would you maybe consider amending the motion to about 450? Just get it up to an even number, and these are all based on averages too, so. For the next several weeks.
you know,
Or
withdraw the motion
500
and
or,
then restate it with it transferring $450,000 even from reserve fund to benefits.
449 is the highest I'm going.
I second.
All right, we got a motion and a second to make a recommendation to budget board regarding the transfer of $450,000 from general fund reserve to employee benefits to help fund the anticipated expenses of the employee benefits account getting through the end of May.
Just real quick, I'm totally for that. Is there anything that we know for a fact that's on the watch list that's gonna negate the rest of that that's got to come out? Like any type of legal claims, anything that would be, I don't even know, right, we're constitutionally obligated to do, any utilities to keep the lights on? Do we know any of that, just to be 100% sure?
I know we kind of went down the list item by item last time, kind of asked that same question, so if something's changed.
Yeah, that's really what I was going for. Do we know anything else? Mainly it was outside legal and the vicinity is the big ones that I was
And if
concerned about.
something really comes up, then we do what we do for employees' benefits
Mhm.
at this point. But we know this is this month.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't something that popped
A little
up.
more
since
of
And I was
That's
going
definitely
off the
needed.
discussion last time. I mean,
I'm
there
kind of
was
just,
nothing that we knew that was a big ticket item that was.
I've not heard anything on vicinity. There's been no alarms rung in our office related to vicinity. Brandy, do you know? Have you guys been?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Colton, have you? And I ask you guys because that would be a facilities thing, and I've not heard anything from Keith or from Kelly Thomas that we're having issues potentially there, so.
What does that bring our reserve down to?
What, 229, 738?
Or what did we do? Okay. Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. All right. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
That was, we finished up 2 and item 3. That action was on item 3.
Cassie, I'll need those other attachments for the budget.
Cassie, will you make sure that that recommendation is on? All right, item 4, discussion possible action regarding department's FY 24-25 estimate of needs. Cassie, what do we have there?
Okay. I'm not sure where exactly to start. But the packet, I'll say packet, the quite large stack that you have next to you has quite a few updated, corrected, new eons. I do have some more to review. You do presently have one for JJC in your packet. I need you to find that. I think it's towards the back. Pull it, because that has since been updated. Please. And I am also bringing around some new ones to add to your, yes. No, that's the old one.
That's okay.
Just throw that in the center, I'll put them at the end. If you just wanna throw the old one in the center, I'll put them at the end.
I like that name.
It's all witness
I
stuff.
don't
In
know.
the back.
It's the last one.
And this is towards the back, so let's go through
Is it
each
one
one.
Yes.
Have the new.
It's in the ones I just handed out.
Okay.
Oh, I just tossed out detention bureau.
There was detention.
It was there was only one JJC one.
Yeah.
In the,
So that,
In the
that one was not correct. This is the correct one. The one that I printed previously, which would have been in the large
Okay.
packet, is not good. Perfect.
can I ask one
Get rid of
other
Yes.
question? The county clerk ones, three specials and that was on the table, but it was also linked to the agenda. Are they the same?
Yes, they are the same. We just printed them out so that you would have paper copies.
And then I brought the employee benefits one to go over to.
But we did get the updated one that you sent out.
I don't have it in juvenile.
I don't have one in my stack.
You walked around before the meeting and swapped things out of the packet.
That was,
Budget ghost.
that was the different one.
Mr. Sherry, yeah.
I'm looking. Yeah, it's not up there.
I know.
Keep them separated.
Okay, we're gonna run some more copies of Bureau, she'll be right back.
All right, so let's not start with your, start somewhere else.
Probably, we got plenty of places to start.
Can I ask,
Benefit and stuff there.
can I ask one other question before we get started?
Yeah.
As of right now, taking all this into account, I think I've got down that we're still missing general government and county commissioners. Is that
Yes,
what
you are
you're saying?
correct.
Just wanted to see what. Thank you.
All right, does anybody have a preference where they start? If not, I'll say, let's start with criminal justice since they are here. Chris?
Yes.
Give us just 1 second to grab it out.
I don't know if we've all had a chance to review this.
Yeah, we gotta go back.
I've not.
1 second.
Okay.
Thank you. Out in orders. Sorry, I know it's a lot of paper. It's gotta be the one on the bottom.
Yeah, but don't wait on me, I know it's in there somewhere. I'll eventually find it.
This one, okay.
Okay, who else, I'm sorry to interrupt, did not receive a bureau?
All right, without objection, I'll ask the clerk to receive this estimate of needs into the record for the Criminal Justice Authority.
No objection.
You've already got all these, right? I mean, 'cause you gave it to us, how we can do that.
What do you mean?
I mean, she's the one who gave it to us.
Yeah, they just need to be made part of the record.
Oh, okay.
Because they weren't attached.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I got you. Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
So as you can see, we went back and there was a miscommunication in our finance department, which is me, fortunately. And so we went back and the intention was to have essentially a flat budget, which the only request that we're making is to annualize the 5% that the trust gave to the detention officers several months ago. Which that is the 200 and, hold on, sorry. I'm sorry, it's a $287,430.77, higher than our budget from last year.
Can you say that number again? I'm sorry. 287.
I'm sorry, I lost it. 287,430.77.
Well, but when you said, you were talking about the annualizing, but then when you just mentioned that, you were talking about the overall. So on your salary, you're showing an increase of $743,264.14. Is all of that related to annualizing the 5%?
Which number are you looking at, Cody?
Like basically the first line item.
Oh, the first
On the
one.
budget, was for everything.
Which one did you, Jason?
Yeah, part of it, so the reason that's higher is also part of the stipend and longevity pay.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that. I see longevity and stipend both.
Yes, ma'am.
So the other numbers, the 40,813.91, 37,496, 53,853, 192,385, and the 87,13, those are all annualization of 5%.
Correct. That's also what those two numbers at the bottom are for next step line. That's the longevity pay and stuff.
Is everybody on the same?
I'm also looking at your overtime. I know we had talked at the last meeting that you thought that would go down.
That's,
But it looks like it's gone up. Is that right?
I'm sorry. Take my glasses off.
Or no,
I'm showing
actually,
the same.
it's the same, yeah. The 744.
Yeah, I mean, our intention, especially with this, we started yesterday, class of 41 cadets. So as we get them into the fold, then the idea is that overtime will start coming down when we have full platoons of officers.
So what is your plan, and we had this situation with OSU Extension earlier in the year where they had given out salary adjustments and then needed us to come in and adjust that. We did a one-time small amount to get through the year, but I mean, what is your plan to annualize that 5% if we can't increase your budget?
Then we probably just hold our FTE to the level that we don't cross that line.
You're wanting to annualize 5%. That includes a 2.5% merit-based pay raise.
In addition to.
In addition
In
to,
addition to.
In addition to.
You know what the DO's ready, it probably says here. You know what the DO started that out now?
40,000.
40.
So when did you when did you award the 5%?
I have to go back and look at, I'll find that for you. I know that it was several meetings ago that the trust decided to do that, so I'll get you that when they made that decision.
I think it was right after the 1.5% raise.
So you anticipate the total budget, all cash, all funds, including cash, to increase about 1.7 million this year?
That's what we're showing right now,
You're
yes.
just eating some of that with a bigger carryover.
Yes.
Why the loss of special revenue? What's going on there? Prisoner boarding down?
Mhm. And also, we're changing our commissary provider, which we were starting to not, we weren't making nearly as much money off it as we had been previously. So we've got a new one coming in June, that will take that over.
Who is it?
Benchmark.
Probably just aren't making as much on commissary in general with the population getting lower, right?
No, we're not making nearly as much on that, and which goes back also to our our prisoner boarding, and then also the phone and commissary were all down pretty substantially comparatively to previous FYs.
Do you guys have a new contract in place with OKC?
Not yet. We're waiting to hear back from them. We sent them some information that they've requested, so we're waiting to hear back from them. So hopefully in the next week or so, we'll be getting with them and getting that contract figured out.
Have they been paying this year?
No, not yet.
So last year they weren't paying, and then at the end of the year, you guys got a contract in place and they.
Yeah, I think it was like 500,000 was what it was last year, so
Yeah, so your carryover that you're projecting this year, the 2.8 million,
would not include that contract currently.
okay.
So if they pay,
Then we'll have more carryover, depending on what number that is, we decide to come to, then yeah, we would have that much more in carryover.
any idea what that number's gonna be? Will it be about the 500,000 again or something?
We're expecting more, but I honestly don't know how much more.
So then you're expecting the carryover to probably be 3.2 million or higher.
As long as we come to at least the same agreement, or we do end up getting more out of the contract.
Or I guess 3.3.
One thing I was also gonna ask, I thought maybe I did last time, and you may not have this in front of you, but why is the biggest expense category to carry forward out of M&O?
What do you want?
Like on the expenditure sheet? The salaries and benefits make total sense to me, but carrying 1.2 forward of M&O seems high.
Bring it up now.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Let me check to see, and we didn't go over that, so.
Well, the reason I just asked is, like this year you anticipated going up by $800,000. That's a large increase, but then you're rolling 1.2 over, so you know what I mean? I just
Yeah,
didn't know if it
No,
was-
absolutely, I'll get you an answer on that.
So on here, you are saying that you're anticipating your overall expense to be 40,698,540.24. then you've got carryover in there, you got your budget request with us, and then you got your special revenue to get to kind of level out that 40 million, right?
Uh-huh.
The special revenue, the $4.2 million, does that anticipate a contract with OKC?
Yes, it does.
What did you put in there for the contract with OKC?
I believe 500,000 was what, until we knew exactly what that number was gonna be, I didn't want to change what we previously had in there.
Any thoughts, any questions?
So your estimated current collections of this fiscal year, I just wanna make sure I'm doing this right, 33.7 from the county and 5.7 million in special revenue, is that kind of what you have?
I'm sorry, which sheet are you looking at?
The front sheet, I was just
Okay.
basically making sure I understood how much is coming from county out of your 39.4. So
Oh,
county
okay.
does 33 point,
Yes.
okay,
33.7.
5.7 is special revenue.
This current year was, yeah, 33.726, yeah.
I guess I could need to deduct the carryover. So it's not quite all special rev.
But when you look at the FY 23-24 adopted budget, it has 33.3 million from the county.
Right.
But the general fund on that front sheet is 33.8.
Is that from the September supplement? That additional amount?
Or 33.7.
So I guess really on kind of to Cody's question, if you do get that contract money for Oklahoma City, would then it be your stance that y'all would not need to ask for anything additional to be a flat budget from last year? Like actually a true flat budget?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, what do you mean by a true flat budget?
Well, I mean, like this year they got 33.7, we'd give them 33.7 again.
But that wouldn't be a true flat because they're gonna have more rollover this year than they had last year. So a true flat would be a compensation for that difference. That's why I think we gotta be careful on our terminology.
The general class would be the same, but yeah, the budget would still go up. Get it.
And Chris, you said your class that's starting or your academy is, there's 41 enrolled?
There was 41 as of yesterday now. We usually lose some during the week, but I haven't checked today to see if we've lost anybody yet.
Still under the 320, okay.
That gets us to, I think, about 300. If we kept everybody in this academy and kept everybody we have now, that would get us about just over 300.
Right, so been in a while. Good.
Yeah, long time.
But I guess, you know, to to Brandon's question earlier, I know you said that you're asking for $287,000 more, but you're looking, that's not your total budget, because you're looking at your special revenue and all of that, and then we've been coming in and taking up the difference, right? But I understand where you have been on your employees and that you're gonna roll over money because you didn't have full employee participation this last year. But that is, when you look at your rollover, the biggest amount is that M&O, which is the 1.2 million. So if you didn't roll that 1.2 million over, it would be the same, and the only thing that you'd be rolling over would be salary and benefits. But the overall request is a $1.7 million increase, saying that your bills are going to go up 1.7 million over what you had this current year. And I understand that you were short, you're short on employees, right? But that's that 1.7, that, I mean, we budgeted you for 100% of the 320.
Sure, and I understand that. I guess my biggest fear would be as that vacancy rate gets lower and lower, it would start to squeeze any cash that we had from carryover.
I'm not following.
You mean if we lowered the 320
Yes.
and not that, okay. Not necessarily.
Oh, but if we kept it the same,
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about,
You're paid
No.
$320 if we kept it.
yeah, I'm saying that what you had, if you got exactly what you got last year for this next year, then you would be funded for 320 people, the same that you were funded, right?
Yes.
But this new budget is saying to have those 320, the same people, you're gonna need $1.7 million more to operate the facility. Because your overall budget is going up by $1,688,068.54.
unfortunately, you're
Right here.
on the 1.6.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, those were just, I'll double check on that, but my understanding is those were costs that were going up for us. Now I'll have to see what all those were, and which, I know you brought it up earlier, but talking about vicinity, and I know that there was a discussion about separating us out from vicinity into our own deal, which is fine, but in that, right now, that would be a pass-through, wouldn't it, from the county commissioners, because they're the ones who approve that, or does that come directly to our budget?
Right now, it's funded through your budget, right?
That's what that's what I thought, but whenever they separate it out, I just didn't know, because I know that's always approved normally by the county commissioners, that would this now require the trust to accept the contract for vicinity for, water?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I don't recall what the lease provisions were.
Yeah, I don't know either. But as long as you're not getting a worse deal than what you had before,
No,
then
they
it should
did
be
say
the
the rates, they did say the rates were probably going up, because the way they've been doing it is they were doing it with just gasoline prices, and they're switching it to both natural gas and gasoline, so that if there are big swings, they're not as sharp as they had been in the past.
So on that maintenance, I'm pretty sure, are you talking about the line item? So you've got gas, electric, sewer, and water itemized stuff, but then there's utilities other that's almost $1 million, or 900,000. What is that other?
Let me check,
Is that,
that, I'm not positive,
okay.
I'll check and see on that.
On your inmate food, are you guys anticipating, it looks like you've got a level budget, and I know normally there's a little bit of a cost increase, but have you guys built into your number here the reduction in population? I know what Brandon was talking about earlier, and you had mentioned commissary and phone revenue goes down because of a lower population, but does that reduction also correspond with some of your line items that are directly related to individual?
I mean, the less
things?
people we have, the more it costs to feed. I mean, the prices are, the lower we are, the higher the price is.
Per meal, it's a.
Per meal,
Yeah.
Per meal, yes.
But have you guys, was that part of your calculation in the no change?
Yes, because we're actually looking at another vendor, including the one that we currently have, and we're pretty comfortable that that's not gonna change.
If it does change and you're able to see some savings there, or your commissary, you see some increases because you're changing commissary or whatever, how would that affect your budget and or your general fund need?
I mean, if those go up, I mean, especially commissary and those where, that's where we make our money. If those start to go up, then of course our reliance on funds from county go down. Just like as an example, we haven't finalized it yet, but we are working on our contract with Turnkey as a medical provider, and we will be saving some money on that contract this year. I'm not sure exactly the dollar amount that we're gonna get to, but so.
Well, but on here, it's showing $186,000 more for,
Because we haven't
Medical.
finalized it yet, and they're,
I get that, but if we finalize a budget for you guys prior to us getting that information, then we would be funding it at a higher rate, right?
sure, yeah, you would.
I don't know if this is a question per se, or if it's just a disconnect. Where we as a board probably individually get a lot of questions, I know I do, about why are you funding 320 when they aren't near 320? And it's always a hard one to answer. And I know it's always, we're working on it, we're doing an academy, but it seems like that delta between the 320 and what you actually have has been used for raises, stipends, longevity, and overtime part-time. And the carryover, when the big chunk of it's M&O, it's just justifying paying 320, trying to get us to where we can
Oh, I
answer that
understand.
question, I guess.
I
Do
understand,
you
and
have any input?
I'll get an answer on that. I don't.
I mean, it wasn't a direct question, but it's just, I think it's just starting to, I know I've been asked.
Oh, absolutely. We want to be completely transparent. So whatever, any of those questions, if I don't know the answer, I will get you an answer
Okay.
on that, for sure.
Because I kept thinking, well, they're not spending it because they have such a big carryover, but what I'm learning right now today is most of the carryover is in that M&O. Or, so I always thought, okay, they're not using it, they're just waiting for an academy, but that doesn't seem, maybe what I was telling people wasn't, I don't know,
Yeah,
we'll
we-
see.
We spent a lot on this academy, and especially the subsequent ones. We were only having like maybe 10 people in an academy, and the standard going forward is when we need to hire people, it's gonna be 40 or more, as many as we can get in the door that we need.
The academy that you're about to start with, the 41, when is it in? Is it over this fiscal year?
Yes, because it's a 6-week program.
I guess one of my concerns, and we've addressed this before, and we talked to Mr. McCubbin when he came in before and reduced the staffing numbers from 400 to 320 to accommodate pay changes. And I don't think anybody here is saying that more pay is not needed or justified or warranted or whatever, that's not the case. But a lot of the elected officials, offices that sit around the table have made the same pleas over the years that their employees are not paid where they need to be paid. But they don't get the money, so they just walk along and make do with, whatever. But anyway, the past is the past, and it was moved to 320. And then we kind of have a situation where this year a pay increase was given, 5%, and you guys are needing that annualized, and I get that. But a decision was made that impacts county general fund, that if you said earlier, if we don't annualize that and give you guys that extra money, then you're going to have to lower your FTE count from 320 to a number lower. And I don't think any of us, just real quick, I don't think any of us sitting around the table were comfortable with the FTE count going down from 400 to 320 when it did, because we thought you need that, you need more employees than that, right? I mean, I think that was kind of a concern that everybody had, and I think there's probably definitely a concern of it going below the 320, but there was a decision made without other means of handling those dollars. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I'm sorry, I probably misspoke. I didn't mean that we would reduce the number of FTE that we needed. I just meant we would have vacancies that we probably would not be able to fill.
Okay, well, to me, that's the same thing. I mean, but I get what you're saying, because FTE is like just a number of employees. It's not a dollar amount. But whenever I'm talking about FTEs, I mean the number of people that you guys can actually have on staff.
I got you.
I'm always curious of the total staff. I mean, the 400, 320, 264, is that total DOs? Is that total staff? And to what extent does that number connect to your population or your census count on average? Because when those numbers were set of what the priority is, you're going to need obviously an amount of medical and some of that kind of stuff, but in terms of DOs and some other positions, that fluctuates with your population. And since it's come down and it is kind of maintaining at a lower level, and some of that's driven by the design of the facility, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into that. I mean, we keep using these numbers, and I'm curious what they're pinned to in terms of population. I don't have a good feel for that, but.
Well,
It does include everything, like whether you're saying 257 that he spoke the last time, if it's 263.20, that is every employee over there. On the estimate needs today, it's showing 96.
96 DOs and 93 clerks. And I understand DOs is not the only people with boots on the ground, because there are like 14 staff sergeants, 14 lieutenants, and 4 captains.
I guess I understand. I'm just curious what the people that serve the detention function, it's DOs and their supervisors, people that walk around and are directly in
They
charge
got
of that.
admin staff.
I'm curious how that number fluctuates based on your census.
Yeah. But this is showing that there's almost as many clerks as there are boots and detention staff.
We have changed some of those. They're still classified as clerks, but they took the training, some of the training, and now they're called DSOs, which means detention service officer. So they can actually escort, they can do med pass, they can do a lot of the things. They can't, they're not gonna go into a cell and extract somebody, but all the other things DOs do, they can do. So we have a lot of those clerks that kind of serve a dual function in that.
How many of those 93 are serving in that dual function?
I'll have to get an exact number, but I believe right now it's about 15 to 20. but I'll double check to make sure what that number is.
That's still a really large percent. I mean, if let's just say it's 20, that's still 73 clerks versus 96 DOs. I mean,
We understand that we're doing our best to reduce the number. We've reduced a lot of our admin staff, so, and we have taken a lot of folks out of service that weren't really doing anything for us. But some of those positions, we're just trying to figure out how we can, because they don't pay very well, so some of it's just hard to get people in. And they don't normally always work out, so.
On the pay raise, the 2.5% and then the 5%, was that for DOs or was that for all employees?
That was for DOs.
It's what for lieutenants, staff sergeants, sergeants,
And
DOs.
when for your,
I mean, rank and file.
well, the 2.5% on budget amendments,
Was for everybody.
it's for everybody.
Yeah.
So I'm
And
sorry, it's
then-
just the 5%. It was approved at the
it's
trust.
intended that way, but they don't have to spend it that way. So I don't know how to spend it, but. Okay.
I mean, I'm just taking a shot at dark here, but I think to answer your question that you originally had, I mean, my guess would be, I mean, back in the days when we were running the jail, I think the DOJ would have said that we were understaffed at 264 inmates, whether we had 1,200 inmates or we had 3,800 inmates or whatever, 3,100 inmates, whatever our highest number ever was. So, I mean, to your point, I see what you're saying, but I don't think that they've ever gotten low enough on population that would ever allow them to get under, just based on a standard.
I can believe that. I just know your numbers, it's a relative number, it's always a
Yeah.
relative number, but, which goes to the point of when they say a new facility would be cheaper to run, no, it wouldn't.
Yeah.
Based on what we're spending, because we're not spending enough now for either facility, a new one or the one we have now, so.
You're right. If
Right, I
you're
mean, so
absolutely
it's,
right.
it's,
Direct supervision.
all things being equal, design-wise, yes, it would cost less, but we don't have enough money, enough people now to run it.
Is that fair? I don't want the words.
No, that's absolutely. I think the DOJ said 500, didn't they?
Yeah, and I don't know when the last time a report was done, but I know back when we had it, it was high, it was well over 500, but again, we were double the population or more. Personally, side check cells with 4 inmates in them, so. I'll raise you one.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
I'll get answers to everybody.
Okay. What do we want to do next? I'm sorry? Okay. John's still here. John, do you want to go ahead and do yours?
Oh, yeah. Love to.
Is it in this stack?
It is. So his has a spreadsheet on top of it, and then his beyond behind. It was six.
Is it one of the stapled ones or?
It is, and then. but the
Spreadsheet.
Oh.
I have some.
There wasn't no reason to do that.
All right, without objection, the chair will ask the clerk to make the estimate of needs for the employee benefits account a part of the record.
Cassie,
I guess I don't.
here's one.
Somebody stealing this, I'm not looking.
So it's gonna be this page,
Oh, fair. Right on
and
top.
this should be right behind it.
Jason, I feel your pain. I looked for
That's okay.
45 seconds at least for ketchup last night
There
in
you
the
go.
refrigerator, and it was right there.
Right where your wife said
Ask me
it
if,
was.
no. I've learned that lesson. I didn't even ask. I stood there and I looked and looked until I found it.
It's not,
The refrigerator starts beeping.
Yeah.
Turn that function off.
Close the door and open it again for another service.
That's, you mind bringing that,
I didn't see. Yeah, the Waldo catch it.
yeah, that one. So, attached is a spreadsheet, and these projected numbers match what I presented earlier. That's through the end of the year where we'll be at. And going with a flat budget as much as I could. But, you know, ARPA reimbursements were projected to be $538,000 this year. I just don't see those keeping on going on at that trend. I really don't. So I estimated 300,000 to be a little more conservative on that. So that's kind of less revenue. The difference is too on, so that's on the expenditure side. That's the only thing that is different. On the revenue side, we had extremely high year in refunds. If you look back, we've never had a high year that high. So I wanted to put that more at a reachable level. So I put 100,000 on there. And then again, the CARES ARPA reimbursements are listed below there. Those are the only changes.
John, why do you think we've had such an increase in those refunds and reimbursements? Is it related to our policy changes?
No, that's just related to a couple of large claims. Stop loss claims, kind of discount adjustment may be overpaid, so they refund some money. So it's kind of a one-time thing. Historically, we've never had that high of refund amount, so I didn't want to set us up expecting that. And then the ARPA really, who knows, throw it up in the air. You know, right now we're at 538,000 projected for this year, but
honestly, with what we've seen, I don't even know that we should count on any of that reimbursement. But I see why you did what you did, but I think that we've seen it play out that our ARPA eligible reimbursements have not gone down, but the medical expenses have stayed the same or gone up.
Yeah.
So
are they coding those claims different, or are they still, you know, I mean, it just, yeah, I hate to count on that for revenue, you know?
Yeah.
In the past, we really, let's see, another stop loss rebates, or stop loss reimbursements, that's another one, you just never know. I bet 293,000, if you look at the other years, we've received more than that, but it could be less. It's just all based on, this year we haven't even had any stop loss claims. So we had a lot of people right under it, but not there. So that's another questionable revenue that I put on there. I remember back in the day, I think we used to not include much when Danny was here in our budget request, just because that was kind of unknown figure.
The employer and the employee premiums, how is that number derived?
That came from finance when they calculated based on average, I guess, on that spreadsheet that was sent to me.
And the reason I ask is just to possibly prevent anything moving forward.
Yeah, good question. So if we look at this, if you bring it down just a little bit this way. Okay, so 22, 23 actual amounts.
John,
Yes, sir.
on the employer premiums
Uh-huh.
and employee, those are the actual numbers we collect
From the estimates of need?
for year to date.
Okay.
well, I think what
He
you
means
probably
collected
did
this year.
was you looked at what we collected this year and knowing that there's been no change in employer or employee rates, you just put the same thing in for next year.
Yeah, so they're pretty close to 22, 23. Last year, if we looked at, there's a huge difference between on the budget.
Yeah.
Oh,
But if you looked at last year, this year,
You see where I'm headed though? So
Yeah, I do
like,
now.
for examples, like, so if we just use exactly what we used last year, like just you taking my department, for example, I've got 5 more people on family than I had last year. So there's $100,000 immediately out the door before we even start the year.
so.
You see what I'm saying?
I think the only way for me to, I'll let them speak, is to average it out, is look in the system by month, what comes in the door, and make the averages based on that. It's hard to speculate what you have changing on yours, but I think that's how they estimate as well, just based on the rolling average, kind of last 9 or 12 months of what's came in the door.
Is that what you guys did to get to that number?
Well, if you look at the 22-23 actual column, that is what we've actually collected in employee and employee premiums for that time frame.
Okay.
Okay,
So then,
which that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's historical. So
Yeah.
23, 24, we just took what we had, divided it out, multiplied by 12, I'm assuming. Is that what you're kind of did there? What we assume we're gonna take into the rest of the year?
that the 23-24 projected,
Yeah,
um,
that year's obviously not done yet.
did you fill that in, John?
I don't think so. It's already filled in, so I didn't touch that.
And regardless of who did, my point is I just wanna make sure that we have the best possible guesstimate of what those numbers are gonna be, because I mean, I certainly understand the law of averages, I get that, but I mean, we have a pretty good tenure of employee here, and generally they don't get less family members. And so, I mean, they seem to grow rather than shrink. So, those.
It kind of goes up and down over the months based on people leaving and they have to wait for the period to come back on. And I'm pretty sure these are, I mean, just looking back historically, if you looked at the budget for last fiscal year and looked at the prior year, those premiums were different by about $1.6 million. So these are synced up to what they actually are this fiscal year.
I guess what I'm saying is if we took all the estimates we need right now, we threw it in the giant counting machine.
Yeah.
That's
What
what
those
I want to
actual
know.
numbers are.
That's what I want
Nice
to
to
know.
know.
Out of all of the estimated needs that have been presented and updated, what is the total amount of,
General fund and all cash funds. What do those numbers actually look like?
because we may be funding a certain amount from general fund into budgets for employee benefits that is greater than that 18 million that we're actually getting. Whereas if we made a change to where we did the allocation up front to where employee benefits was actually getting those dollars that are presented on estimate of needs, then that may make up a lot of the revenue that we're missing for that account.
Sorry, John.
Makes
I
sense.
didn't know
No,
how
that makes
I
sense.
just-
No, I'm glad you
I
brought
just,
that
I
up.
just wanna make sure that those numbers jive with what the departments are submitting. I feel like the method we use to account for benefits, that's the most honest way to do it, would be what is the person who's over that department submitting as a need?
What money are they getting
Yeah,
for it? Yeah, that makes sense.
That way, in case we do decide to make a play later on, we'll actually know what those numbers might be.
Yeah, because these numbers are based on just people who are enrolled in the plan and getting taken out of their paycheck monthly. It triggers that employer contribution and such. But we wouldn't be in such a hole this year for actually collecting all the money that were sent to budgets for employee benefits that really didn't have people on the plan.
Because if they didn't have them on the plan and we didn't fund it to those budgets for that purpose, then that money would be sitting in general fund reserve available to put into employee benefits to offset those expenses.
Is there a way, I mean, an easy way in that BET sheet that comes out, you know, it's got all the different funds and all the different funds?
Like the little summary sheet that we
Well,
worked on
The one, actually all that goof that's below the summary sheet.
the.
The one that has all the general funds, all the cash accounts. Is there a way to easily do that? I mean, write a couple of if-then statements so we can pull out that stuff immediately and just total it all?
Yeah, I've already started adding those up as far as with the
Okay.
comparing to the estimates and then comparing to all of the estimated needs that the people filled out. And I went and looked at last fiscal year, and compared as far as what the requests were and what we ended up with. And there was over 300,000 just last fiscal year left in other people's departments that never made their way to the employee
Right.
benefits. And that's just general fund, that's not even the special revenue.
Right,
So that's not.
And that's not including the jail.
right. Which is a big number. Okay. Again, sorry, I'm gonna hijack that. I just didn't know how those numbers were come up
budget.
And the same thing on the retirees, I guess. I mean, are those actual, since we know exactly how many people are on that plan, or?
So there's no
Those are-
employer function for the retirees, really. We do a transfer, and those employer costs are captured through that transfers we do.
Okay.
Since they're not on payroll, there's no automatic employer contribution that goes out every month, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, like the employee side of it, like when they come in, they write their check for their insurance for the year.
Yeah, so those are deposits, retiree premiums,
Okay.
and they just did on the average of that.
Okay.
And that just syncs up exactly. We came in a little lower than we were last year, but that syncs up correctly. Really, the budget issue last year was employee premiums. If you look at the two side by side,
Yeah.
this year budget versus last year actuals, you can see $1.6 million difference. We don't have that at all. It syncs up totally. And then what I did is just project it through the end of June using the exact numbers I gave you in my employee benefits update. Just plug those numbers in. And again, the only thing I took off are those questionable revenue things that we don't know if we're going to get or not.
I think having the estimate of needs, dollar amounts associated with family and single insurance would be very helpful and beneficial.
And then I just copied that to the actual estimate of needs. Those spreadsheet figures.
I don't know the best way to do it, I mean, because as far as the estimates need, I mean, I'm, for fear of sounding like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, the only time that's ever accurate is on February 28th. You know, I mean, on February 30th, it's not accurate anymore, you know? I mean, so, I mean, it's, you know what I mean? It's just, so that's, I don't know how we legitimately do that, but it's certainly, I know that somehow, some way, that's what digs those little tiny holes in benefits every year, you know?
And I think the way you do it is going to be different based upon your organization. For my organization and Brandy's and Colton's, it's a little bit different because we've got a fewer amount of employees, and we also don't have a whole lot of turnover in those employees, especially in our general fund budgets, right? So it's pretty easy for me to get with John, and I always have him send me a spreadsheet before I do my estimate of needs to find out who's on there, and then I'll go and ask, hey, are you changing your insurance this year? Are you anticipating changing? And I make those, changes as necessary. And usually the answer is no, I'm not going to make a change. Some of you guys that have larger departments, the sheriff, the court clerk, and the assessor, and others, it's a little bit more difficult on that. You guys may need to look at averages over 9 months or 12 months or something like that. So I think coming up with those numbers is a little bit different organization to organization, but overall, I think there is mechanisms that we can utilize to get a really good idea. I mean, if you look at, for instance, just looking at the data here on the retiree premiums, those are pretty consistent, right? And if you start looking at your averages over 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you might start seeing a really consistent amount in there. Because to Brandon's point, we do have a lot of long-time employees.
Makes sense. And the only thing I didn't project on this or include in part of the calculation is that switch to UMR TPA. That takes effect 7/1, but we're going to see some relief. Claims could go up. It's all based on utilization. Costs go up every year, but their network pricing is lower than our current one is. But it'll take at least 6 months probably to see some of those claims, because any claim incurred after 7/1 will go under that UMR pricing system, which is a lower price, but they have a year to file it. So it all, we'll be paying run out, if that makes sense, after July from the old plan. And when those claims come in from the new plan, they have a lower provider network cost. So we're going to see some relief on that, but I didn't want to calculate it because I just did flat across just in case.
I'd just like to see us get to point employee benefits where we don't have to.
Do
Not
what
that
we're
I
doing
not
the
that I
last
mind
2 years.
doing it. I'd just love to see us get to a point employee benefits where we don't have to do
I agree.
this at the end of every year. It's the only part of the employee that we do that with. We never have to come in here and say, how are we gonna pay for the 12% retirement? How are we gonna cover the employer's portion of FICA?
Yeah, it's a movable expense. It's the only movable expense we deal with. It's the second highest expense back to, salaries or the jail.
Yeah.
But, in the past, historically, we've always done a great job at estimating, and we kind of came close to those. And some years we went way under. That we've had kind of two back-to-back years, and like I said, let's hope it gets better. We're doing everything possible. We're kind of the front leader in everything we do compared to, private plans all across the city have copied us. People in Oklahoma now are copying our new prescription plan. Big names. So we're doing all the right things. It just takes time to get there. And we have an older population too. So it's a different dynamic.
Well, I think I've said this before, but right now you got two broad pieces of a puzzle here. You got expenses and you got revenues. And the problem is right now with the way we do it, we're guessing on both. We're guessing what our revenues are going to be coming in because we know how much we're giving out in budget dollars to departments to fund employee benefits, but we don't know what is actually going to be coming in there. And then of course there's no way we can accurately guarantee what our expenses are going to be. So, I mean, there's just so much up in the air, whereas if we can at least take one of the variables out of the equation and we know we're budgeting, or we know on our revenue side what we budgeted we're going to receive, then we're only dealing with one side of the equation that's got variables on it, and that's on the expense side. And that's where your team has done a really good job over the years finding ways to save money, whether it's changing providers or moving a whole new concept with the 100% programs and our HRAs and all of that stuff that we started doing. That's probably 15 years ago now.
Yeah, more than 14 years ago.
Yeah, so it's you guys have done a really good job, and you can keep trying to make modifications there. But if we have to, focus on both areas, then it's hard to focus on either, right? Whereas if we can get one of them kind of solidified to where we're having to focus on solving one problem instead of two. That's what I'm saying.
Makes sense.
I'd love to be able to make those changes based on, because it's just good for the plan, not out of financial necessity.
Right.
Well, yeah.
John, on your 23-24 projected,
Mm-hmm.
did this include
That
the
amount
May,
today.
the May and June?
Correct.
Okay.
That tells exactly to that one spreadsheet I provided. And then the only difference is there's more because those revenues are subtracted. Those questionable revenues are. And I know we have some time until the September supplement, but so I just copied it like you instructed me to kind of what the estimate was, just a flat budget, and then kind of look at it and then revise it as we go into the next fiscal year if we need to.
Yeah. So as we're moving into next fiscal year, of course, we can make some modifications, whether it's to the employer premiums or whatever, at September supplement. If we do make a change on the way we fund employee benefits, if we change that, I think it would be helpful to do it before July 1, because that will be a complete change on the way we're doing that. And it would be hard to make that change in September. I don't know what people's thoughts are, but I think if we are, I turned in my estimate of needs, and I am absolutely 100% comfortable in my my assessment of the need for District 1, whether it's general fund or highway cash, to fund the folks that are going to be on the medical plan for the year. Should we look at, instead of giving District 1 on the general fund side, special revenue is going to have to be a little bit different, but on the general fund side, wherever we're funding employees' benefit dollars, employer premiums on that side, do we want to keep doing it the way we've done it, and we may get what we turn in for estimate of needs, we may not, or do we want to just go ahead and fund that over to employee benefits from the get-go? we're already making the decision. When I say we, I mean the budget board. When they make the decision on the budget, they're making the decision that this is what we're funding for the year for the purposes of funding employee benefits.
You had me at hello on that whole idea. I mean, mentally, I'm there. I'm hoping we do it. I don't understand why we wouldn't do it, but maybe that's just because nobody's brought up the deadly problem with it I'm not aware of. I don't know, but I think it makes perfect sense.
Well, no, I can think of some reasons why you wouldn't. I'm totally for it. I mean, obviously, you know my stance on it. I mean, I can see why people would be against it, but I mean, it allows some departments to lapse a lot of money. I mean, allows potentially to buy a computer that you didn't have the money for. But at the other time, I mean, now, I don't expect this to continue forever. We've also had to pass the hat last year, likely again this year, potentially again this year. You know, I think that.
But even if we don't pass the hat, we're recommending, and budget board is appropriating money for benefits that we know darn good and well isn't, there's some portion of that will never go to benefits. And it's being transferred towards the end of the fiscal year to go for other things. Again, they have to come back and get the vote to do that, but to me, it just makes sense to.
That's kind of where I was headed with the employer premium number earlier, because if we have a fixed amount for the July budget, now the cash accounts, like Cody said, will be a little bit different. But if we've got a fixed number, at least out of the general fund, we can at least shore up the employee premium number. That way, for sure, whatever number it is, we set in July 1 is exactly what employee benefits will get, at least out of general fund. I'm for it. I joked last time, but I mean, it doesn't make any sense for me to buy Cody's lunch with his money. I mean, that's essentially what we're doing. I mean, the county's giving it to me, just turn right around and give it to benefits. I mean.
But not all of it.
Not all of it. Yeah, but not all of it, so.
And that's where it becomes difficult planning and executing the plan, because we think we know, but we actually don't know. And we don't know that we don't know until sometimes it's too late and you're in a situation like we've been in these last 2 years.
What you're essentially doing, if we make a change, is removing one of the many variables that make it difficult to pin that number down. And to me, that just would seem to be a sound practice. Remove as many of the variables as possible.
I agree with all that, and I agree with the concept. I just worry about how it works mechanically.
Yeah, I was thinking logistics.
So we worked really hard in the county. There used to be other things that were funded off to the side. And it was under, like, Danny, when Danny was here, and it was a big thing to cost account everything out. So when someone is paid out of a certain fund, it encaptures everything associated with their pay. Mm-hmm. And so in my mind, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, if we're going to take 18 million, we're not going to load it into general fund budget or whatever the general fund share is. So let's just say we're going to capture the general fund amount, and then it's how it just mechanically works when you're looking at the cost of an employee per fund, and then how it mechanically works to move the money every time payroll's done.
And that part, I understand what you're saying. I mean, we're making a really concerted push right now in our department internally. If you come up and you say, how much does it cost to run investigations? We want to be able to know how much it costs to run investigations. So is there a way in Munis to set it up to where, you still have all those deductions, but they just come from a different org? I mean, I don't know.
That's a question.
I've always heard that.
You can. So each deduction follows an org.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, each separate deduction element follows an org. It usually follows the employee's pay. So retirement, everything else follows that org. So you can change it to a different org. I don't know the setup or anything like that.
I don't know that either.
I've always heard that, for example, if you've got a general fund employee, you shouldn't pay their benefits out of the cash accounts. But I don't see where I don't know if that's as far as I can tell, that's not a state auditor's policy. That's not a state policy or state law. It's more of an internal policy for us. But the way my limited knowledge in Munis, it to me appears that you can set somebody's pay up out of general fund, for example, and somebody's benefits out of cash. That deduction, if that answers the question that you're asking, that's what it appears to me. But I mean, we've got
I'm just
Munis
thinking,
experts
trying
in
to
here.
think it all the way through. Okay, it's a great idea. I mean, we need capturing the amount that we're estimating employees' benefits, you know, should get, will get, actually goes there. I mean,
Does anybody, you all know off the top of your head if that's a possibility? Because I know you're living on the spot.
I'm not an expert in use quite yet, but
quite yet. I like it.
I mean, they're going to Tyler Connect, or Albert is, and part of it is looking at really using all the modules that come with it we haven't done. And I think, what I'm thinking is we're talking about it, to your point, it's a lot easier said than done. We don't have to, I think we could say we like it in concept, but we need to know what the details are, and that's what we're waiting for before we make a formal recommendation.
And the reason that I'm confident in saying, at least from my perspective, is because we have employees, for example, who are paid, let's say, out of general fund or out of what we call 1160s or our service fee account, who then also work OT. And so when that OT code pops up, their benefits are then paid from that OT account, and then also their salaries are paid from that OT account, and it does not
But
affect
is it
their
the same
normal
fund?
pay. It is not the same fund.
That's-
So, yeah, it's like OT, yeah, we don't have any OT in our general or cash accounts. Well, it's not dispatch says, but that's a weird one, because of this, yeah, state pays for that, helps. But, anyway, so like when I say like our traffic safety, for example, somebody might be paid out of general fund for their normal day-to-day work, for 40 hours a week or whatever, but they might work X amount of traffic safety hours, and all in the same account. If I pull that up, I can see all those things on there. Like, because that pay code, or like John said, a deduction code is attached to that org.
It usually calls your pay code.
So we could set it up to where, you know, somebody like me that's paid out of 2 different accounts depending on the time of the year or the month, right? Because I'm general fund some of the year and highway cash some of the year. If I'm general fund, it's one org, which would be cash code, and then whenever the cash account, like what you were talking about, Brandon, but then whenever I'm on highway cash, it would be out of the highway cash, the org set up for highway cash, which would be directly sent over to you guys.
And that's how it should be working, from my understanding right now currently.
Okay, but it's all linked to that deduction code or that pay code.
Pay code, yeah, and it's a org, you know, the org stream that's related to
Yes.
highway cash or whatnot. But
So we could just set it up where anybody that's paid out of general fund, that org would go to that same cash account. Everybody's would be the same
The
instead of right.
benefits deduction code would go.
Yes. Yes.
Or to just take a step back, if we said all the amount of the budgets that we're gonna say for employee benefits for each department's estimated is gonna be 23 million. And we say we're probably gonna collect $18 million. Set that aside, that difference aside, and then what we estimate, just transfer that monthly like we do our regular transfers when the cash is available.
Well, and I'm understanding is that the mechanics are not a problem in terms of transferring money around. It's the accounting for it, so that you can really know where you're spending your money. You don't want to lose that. I mean, to me, to have a small committee work with our payroll and finance department to figure out what would that look like. We can get Augie and Tyler to figure out how can we do that so that it gives everybody the accounting information we need and expect.
But that's separate and apart from the budget side, right?
Yes, it is. But I mean, I think to get a comfort level to get there, to make it a part of the. That's why I'm saying it doesn't need to be done to do the budget, but it does, I think, it will affect the budget, our budget recommendation a little bit.
Well, what we could do if we wanted to go this route was we could go through just like we have done every year and approve a budget, a general fund budget for District 1 that includes salary, benefits, it includes all of that. But the recommendation is that of the general fund approval, X amount was for employee benefits, And that amount will actually go directly to employee benefits and not to the District 1 budget on July 1. When they load it, just like right now, my budget is approved, and on July 1, the clerk's office loads so much in salary, so much in benefits, so much in M&O and travel and capital. And when you guys set mine up, instead of putting all of my benefits amount in there, you're going to put all of my benefits except for that amount that was associated with medical, and that's going to be loaded into this other account.
Does that?
Yeah, and I think all for it. I just think, I was understanding what Christy was saying is there might be a reluctance if it looks like it's going to be, if we did go that direction, that it's impossible to account for things. I don't know. I'm putting words in her mouth now, but.
Yeah, and I
No, I just wanted to kind of.
And I think the problem can be solved.
You're talking some kind of new fund for it to sit in. When you pull it out of everyone's budget, you're talking about a fund that you'd be transferring.
Could we just
Probably
transfer it
monthly.
into employee?
Could we not
It'd
just
be
do
to
it
go to
all
the
in
same-
employee benefits?
Because we're doing
From the
regular
get-go?
transfer, not regular, but transfers anyway. If we go to this.
It would be loaded directly to employee benefits, not into a fund to then be loaded. It would just automatically be loaded to employee benefits on July 1.
I mean, it might be a more regular.
But that money's not available.
Sure.
I mean, yeah, maybe we could. It's just.
benefits would get
Got
it
the
on the same
cash.
schedule we get it on, right? Benefits would just get it on the same schedule the departments get it on, right?
And
Be a
then,
more regular, stable amount.
and then the special revenue funds, those would just continue the
Like-
same they are
like
now
usual.
and then go through the payroll process, determine who's on payroll and get those contributions.
For the cash.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
There'd still be a possible discrepancy on the cash accounts, but I mean, as far as the general fund is the majority of it.
Right.
And to your point, it doesn't matter on the budget, but I think to get to Christie's, address her concern is that it can be done. It's just figuring out how we need to do it. I mean,
Right, I'm
working
for
with
the
payroll
concept.
and Tyler to figure out how to
I
make it work.
see the need and.
And we have enough time, hopefully, that we can do
Well,
it.
that's-
There's
that's-
payroll need necessarily to make that scenario happen. It's more of a accounting structure and a transfer structure, kind of copying from account to account. Because we know we can total up the total budget amount. We know that amount from whatever they submitted, and say that gets approved at $20 million. Then say, hey, we're estimating we're gonna have 18,390. So at the start of the year, just schedule a transfer schedule, because the money's not available all at once, but month by month, just split it up in 12 months and transfer that over from general fund as it comes in. On the payroll side, you kind of leave it untouched, but you put that employer contribution to zero, so it still tracks by fund. And you know who's on what plan, it still has all those numbers, you can all run all the reports, but maybe just, if the gross amount that's submitted by budget says for employee benefits is 20 million, we say, hey, we're gonna have actual expenses are 18.6. Take that 20 million, divide it over 12, fund that into employee benefits over a scheduled amount of time, just like transfers. That's probably the easiest way to accommodate it, but Christie,
Are you saying from the current department?
No, into a different
At the
fund.
first of the year, we make transfers as money becomes available into employee benefits, because it's all the cash not there. So follow the similar approach with employer premiums of saying, okay, here's everybody's estimate of needs that were approved. Say there's $20 million for employee benefits. Okay? Say our actuals are probably gonna be 18.3 million. But, on the budget for the people they haven't hired or whatnot, fund that entire amount into employee benefits, and as cash becomes available, fund it every month, just like a scheduled transfer out
Then we
of
just have
general
an
fund.
appropriations on budget board, just like we do for the 1.5 million of already approved money for employee benefits. We'd have another appropriations amount on budget board for that 12th amount of the employer premiums for general fund accounts.
Remind me again why or how. So like, let's say, just for easy numbers, I get $4 million in my general fund for benefits. What triggers the amount to be pulled from the clerk's office to go into employee benefits? Why don't you say 4 million divided by 12, and every month you just get the 12 of that?
Well, what it is now,
What
it's
triggers
based
that?
on current enrollment. So on the deduction thing that comes out of the employee's paycheck, there's two different amounts, a field that you fill out. There's an employee amount, employer amount. So what triggers that employer contribution every month is when payroll runs. If that employee has the health deduction, it's going to send it out tied to that fund.
Okay.
Right now. What we could do is zero that amount out, and it still follows that account structure, so all the reporting's still there, so you know who's on it, what funds.
Right.
You get all the reporting, but you just don't have the dollar figure coming out, because now it's coming out as a monthly transfer instead.
Okay.
But
We need to have a recommendation to budget board by,
I mean, unless you're gonna call a special, it's gotta be on by this month.
right,
The
but
16th.
if we do a special, it could be the end of this month,
I
right?
think so. I think
But,
I know the clerk's office always needed, because they have to file it with the state, there's a protest period.
right,
I mean, you just wanna have everything in place so you're loading appropriations July 1.
right.
We've always made that budget board,
Yeah.
the regular budget board, and that always gave them enough time to.
Do we have time to work all this?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the budget in general or the employees benefit
Both.
issue? Okay. I mean, of course we do. It's just, the employee benefit seems rushed. If we're gonna do kind of a flat budget, I would even say a little bit less than a flat budget. If we don't have the time to really look at one-time expenditures and do all the stuff that we used to do. I would say we recommend a budget 90% of current or something. Given that if there's any contracts that need encumbrances, then we can figure that out,
Well, but
or at
then,
least on the salary part.
yeah, if we're gonna come in and make a change like this though at September supplement, then,
Now, the employees' benefits, that seems rushed to me, this whole new concept, but I'm not saying it can't be done. We could try something a little bit different. It wouldn't get the employees' benefits dollars in there right away, but maybe for a year, I mean, you can always put a policy on fringe. So we load everyone's budget, we fund it the way we normally do. But there's policy that we pass that that can only be used for fringe. There's no moving it, there's no coming along moving it to M&O or moving it to, capital or anything like that. And maybe it's in your budget, it's cost accounting, it has limits, and maybe the only time the fringe could be used is if someone needs to do a payout, salary related payout. Then at the end of the year, when we have our overall carryover in general fund, that fringe amount that's still sitting there, and then the employees' benefits would get it at the beginning of the
Are
next
you
year.
rolling health into fringe? Because I generally don't.
Oh, sorry, I'm talking health. Yeah, it would just be the health part, sorry.
Okay, well, I just
Yeah.
want to make sure.
So the health part, and it would just be something we can kind of start, having, I hate to say control, but, a little more feel over those dollars. We just wouldn't. So you use the health only for health, and at the end of the fiscal, everything trucks along normal, and then at the end of the fiscal year, that amount, and then that amount gets loaded into employees' benefits. So it's like a year delay, but then once you start going, you're capturing what hasn't been spent. It's the same mechanism, just a different way, a little more streamlined. It's just a year delay. But you could say July 1, that health money is only for health.
My only concern with the weight, and I understand what you're saying, my only concern with the weight is that works really, really well for 8 elected officials and BOCC department heads. It does not work for all departments, all people who receive general fund allocations. You know what I mean?
No.
It's like to jail.
Oh, okay.
We'll keep all that money again.
Well, that's one
Yes.
we can keep. When they're on our plan, we could keep that on our books. We don't have to send it to them.
So you're saying do what we're talking about, but just apply it to the authority.
We can think about it. If we want to try them the other way, again, I'm for the concept. I'm just, if we think we can do it.
well, I think maybe if we took your approach to start moving us down that road and we funded any entity that we use general fund dollars to pay for medical that's not here where the money stays here. If we hold that, so like on, you'd mentioned the jail, if they're, I don't remember what theirs was on, their health. That number's too small. Like $4 million.
Yeah, they're, yeah.
So we would just hold, we'd approve their budget, but on the 4 million whatever for benefits, we would hold that here and move that all over to employee benefits. And then everybody else, we would hold it with a stay, if you will, on that portion of people's budgets that we're not going to transfer that around in the middle of the year. And if you have any left over, it will, at the end of the year, it'll be automatically put into employee benefits.
Or you'd run in, even June, you'd have it. You know, we're at later in the year, we kind of know what we have.
That'd be easier logistically.
It would.
Yeah, it would.
And I agree with you as far as it being kind of rushed and it's like, oh, okay, now we need to get rolling on this. I think having some time doing it this way, I really like that idea.
I'm more comfortable doing it like that
Mhm.
right now, and we can kind of see how it plays out. If we can do what your suggestion was, which was hold that back, because that's a big part of the
reason why.
issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we can control, and budget board can put their foot down and say, no, we understand District 1 has an agenda item on here wanting to move benefit dollars over, but we're not going to approve that, and then we can't do it, right? I mean, there's that control there, and so we can still effectuate this without rushing into it, and maybe throughout this year, we find a mechanism that we can do it like that, or maybe we say, hey,
Eunice.
yeah, with their training, or maybe we say, hey, this works,
Mhm.
just doing it the way that we kind of set it up, but we're not rushing it.
Mhm.
The example you just did with the jail, and we just used 4 million. We need to get ready that if we're gonna not send that to them and we're gonna hold it over here and kind of match their, you know, when they turn in their payroll, we see exactly how much needs to be pulled from that. But it could go the other way too. They could get an academy, raise numbers, and then we're gonna have to.
Yeah, and I think whichever way we do this, even if we jumped in and did it all right now, I think our estimate of needs is what everybody has presented before we even had these discussions, right? Then at the, getting close to the end of this year, employee benefits is gonna need to do an analysis of all of the accounts, because if District 1, if I've underestimated and I've only put 4 people in there and we've had 9 the entire year, then he's gonna need to present something, so I'm going to have to increase my estimate of needs to reflect what that actually was. Because we can't have people being creative like that. It would never happen, but there would be a check there that we would, moving forward after that first year, there would have to be a double check in there and make sure that each budget is representing a true depiction of what they have.
Well, I think we just go back to the same method we were using, if we're gonna just take that same February 28th snapshot, you know what I mean? If that's what we're doing right now, at least that's what I'm doing. And then I think that we can still do it the same way, just depends on which bucket it ends up in at the end. I mean, because I understand what you're saying.
So I don't, somebody help me understand exactly what you're.
What mine is?
Yeah.
It would just be whatever we load in to fringe benefits for health can only be used for health. And then this is policy. This is just policy. It's not like mechanics on the books, unless it's a jail, that might be. And then it's only used for that. And then part of the policy is at the end of the fiscal year, if there's money still sitting there that people haven't used for medical, which they can only use it for medical, then we just make the commitment, basically that goes into employees' benefits, not general fund, normal,
And
not
so
done
where's
back
it
into
sitting?
carryover.
Is it sitting in each department?
Yes, it would sit for this first year because of needing to figure out how we really do this. And it may be that we decide that we just want to keep doing it like that, but it sits in there. And this time of the year, when John's coming and saying, hey, you know, it looks like we're going to be $600,000-$700,000 short, and we say, well, hey, have we done an analysis yet to see where everybody is on their budget? Well, there's $800,000 sitting there in all of our collective fringe benefit accounts. I'm not saying there would be, but if there is.
But that's what we're doing now. The only difference would be is an agreement ahead of time by the budget board to not
Policy.
allow you to change
Yes.
how you use that
I'd
money.
even go a step further if it were me and just say all of fringe can only be used for fringe. And maybe the only exception is if you have some big payouts, you know, when people leave and you have to pay their vacation and you don't have enough in salary, maybe there. And then all of fringe helps. Like you're basically taking all of fringe and using it to fund employees' benefits, even retirement.
I
even-
agree.
Okay, and how does that,
It's a new funding mechanism for employees' benefits. Because you're gonna have turnover. People leave.
no, I understand.
We've funded them for 19.65% of fringe, and then
So how would we treat the criminal justice authority?
you know they're on our plan. I
think
think we
we-
keep the money.
I think what Christie's suggesting is the fringe that we budget for them, we budget it, but it is all spent on that, so the employee
That or
benefits.
they still do their pay.
But we would treat them differently.
It would be.
That's.
I mean, they're not.
Yeah.
They're a
I mean,
totally
you'd have
separate
to, but
legal
I just-
entity
but-
that chose to be on our benefit
But,
plan.
but the
So
other
we pass the
argument
hat,
is
they don't help.
they're treated differently in being able to roll over all of their excess dollars and we don't.
Yeah, and I wanna be clear too, I mean, in the jail, I don't know that I'm inherently for holding fringe as well. I know that we're not, like, because to me, cause I don't think that, at least that right now, that's not on the table for everybody else. If it's never our anticipation to hold the 19.65%, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that for the jail and not everybody, because I do think we're treating it differently. I mean, I just wanna make sure that the record reflects that in these changes, we're not lowering their budget in any way. We're just taking the money that they otherwise
Right.
get from that.
Yeah, no, I didn't take,
Yeah.
I took
I'm not
Christie
saying
as
lower their
saying,
budget.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
Still part of
no, I took Christie
Well-
as saying that she would take it one step further for all of us, that we would have that commitment that all of the fringe
Not
that's,
just the
that's
health.
budgeted
It's
would
carry
not
over.
be moved into anything else for that year. And if my fringe between retirement, FICA, all of that, if I've got, $18,000 left in my account at the end of the fiscal year, that 18,000, all of it goes over into employee benefits. And it would be that way for everybody. Is that, you weren't saying just do the full fringe on the trust. You
No,
were talking about
everybody,
doing it for
yeah.
everybody.
As a policy.
And a question real quick for this year, since that money's been allocated for benefits into each department's budget, it was intended, approved for benefits, all that excess money sitting there now, I don't know how much there is, why could we not, since it's already been allocated to benefits, it's been approved for use of benefits, why couldn't we do an analyzation of where we're at now and use that to fund part of our
As a mechanism to pass the hat per se.
yeah, right now, let's see, hey, we have X amount of money left. Because there's money sitting there that, in addition to reserves, we know, in each department's budget, specifically approved for employee benefits.
And that's, to John's point, I haven't been really worried like I was last year when I was brand new on the passing that, because we're just asking you to kick in the money that was already given to you for that purpose.
you're giving it back one way or the other.
Right.
Yeah.
So to me, if we end up passing the hat, I think that's really in essence what we're doing.
Most people are giving their money back.
Right. Yeah, you might not be able to move it to something else, but it was originally, unless the expense ends up being way greater than that amount.
And then we have an overs and it's seed corn is, which is.
The only thing is if it's in everybody's departmental account, then that's limited by fiscal year, whereas if it's set aside or goes into another thing you've talked about, if money is actually going straight into benefits and it accrues, if that isn't spent, then that could allow you to leave some in there for cushion.
I'm like a catfish and laser beam, so I'd still like to know if we think it's possible to separate those out. If we know, or if we're barking up a tree that, I mean, we're just blowing hot air, you know, I mean, so I guess the question becomes, is it possible in Munis to set it up in such a way that, let's say you get paid out of general fund, your salary, your FICA, your retirement comes out of general fund, but your health deduction goes to the employee benefits account.
The employer amount for premiums.
Just the employer.
Let's talk about that real quick, because currently, Brandon, help me understand, currently, the deductions follow the pay. How, the fund account, how would you want to do that different for the employer portion? What are you proposing?
Well, I just mean, because I'm trying to accommodate both interests here, because Christie had made a mention, and we do the same thing. I think the only way, unless I'm missing something off glaring, the only way to figure out what an exact employee cost is and have it all tied back to that employee's record at Munis.
So currently, if you're saying, looking at if we changed or we just transferred amount over, is that what you're kind of saying?
Mm-hmm.
But you still want to track who's on it
Correct.
and where they get paid from?
Correct.
So the deductions follow their pay, payroll's here, they can confirm that. It follows whatever org or fund they're paid out of. So on the employer health deduction, we maintain the health deductions. You would just put a zero amount or a zero amount, but it still knows that they're on there. And you can do a head count and basically do the numbers from knowing they have that deduction. And it follows their org.
Okay.
If we did a transfer method instead of collecting premiums by the month from the employer side.
Using the same data, it's just.
Yeah, it's saying that it's already on the employee. It's just you zero out that monthly contribution amount, still follows whatever org they're getting paid from, and they're still reported.
So we could then still always go in and find out what the true expense of that department was. Because we know what employees were on the plan and whether it's single or family throughout the entire year.
That's my understanding. That's what Brandon and Christie have talked about. We want to be able to still account for that.
And I think that probably is possible. I mean, we have to do some research on how we would set up the system and work out the, systematically work out the details to ensure that there was an org code tied to the deductions for benefits. So systematically, it should be possible because we have existing deductions that we treat in that manner. So we would just have to take a look at how to set that up and, run a couple of tests, but we should be able to do that systematically. We can also run headcount reports for payroll to kind of give department heads a information of how they're trending in terms of current employee numbers. So I think it's systematically, I think it's doable, and there are other options we could provide you from an analytics perspective that might be helpful to track your head count.
I mean, I'm confident you don't lose any of the data. It's just getting the right business rules built in.
It's already there, really.
Right.
It's already there.
It's just
all we do is put a zero in the employer amount. It's all done. And then just have Augie write a report on pulling those people out who have that deduction code. So we can accommodate it just like that if we have to now. It doesn't recreate the wheel, it's already created. It just we have to put a $0 amount in the employer portion. It follows their org, then we can just report on who has it. We can do that today if we wanted to.
Because you'd still want to be able to do that for each individual department, know what your total cost was for your employees. And we're going to also want to make sure that revenue that covers the employer part for the trust is shown on their ledger, not on ours. I mean, we need to do that in some other areas too, but we certainly don't want to lose. Make it look like we've cut them on this one. We're just not sending it to them, we're just sending it directly to
It
benefits.
just gives more control of the budget. My only question would be, I'm thinking about myself, is our reval fund is a 90-10 split, so we're not 3 months solid out of this and 9 months solid out of this. There might be some conflicting things we might have to address specifically for us.
Yeah.
But I think it can be worked out, just as long as we take that into consideration.
You talking about moving people in and out of?
No, our reval, which is 90% paid through the core amenities and 10% general fund budget. That's just a recurring number every month for us. Don't do 11 months out of the year of this and 1 month out of the year of this.
I kind of like Christie's idea though, because I think everybody that I've heard speak so far likes the idea conceptually of making some type of change so that we know that the budgeted benefit dollars go to fund benefits for the year. I also agree with what Christy and Brandy had mentioned a minute ago about not rushing into, because this is a big change, and while we want to be able to explain it as well as possible, we also want to make sure that the back end is all set up and we have everything done. So I think we can effectually do the same thing, get the same outcome by just doing a policy for now that we don't transfer any benefit dollars for any other purpose during the fiscal year, and any benefit dollars that we give to any other entity for a budget for via contract, that we hold all of those benefit dollars, and those benefit dollars, while budgeted to them, are spent 100% into the benefits account to help fund it. And we do that for this fiscal year moving forward. And while we're in this fiscal year and we got folks that are at Tyler Munis training and everything, we can try to figure out, is there another way that we can do this long term? Or we may like the short-term solution to extend it into a long-term solution. But it gives us some flexibility, but it also allows us to start making changes to the employee benefits plan immediately.
We can stop the hemorrhaging immediately.
Yes.
That's the,
Or just quit transferring
Yeah.
it for other purposes, don't they?
Yeah.
Now, we will have the change for the jail, we won't be processing their payroll, from what I understand, starting July 1st. So it's almost like that would turn it into them invoicing us. Or providing their payroll, there's gonna be something there, it's not just us doing their payroll anymore and us just moving money to, there's gonna be.
So on the benefit side, the employer contributions, employee contributions, that's all coming from Paycom and instead, or basically it's coming from the jail, because they have to do all those functions that payroll used to do. So they're gonna have to send over the employer contributions, they're gonna have to do all that.
I know. I forgot about that part. that
So we
they're
can-
Not
but-
gonna be on our payroll system. anymore.
Right.
They're on our benefits and retirement, but not payroll.
But we budgeted, we just take whatever dollar amount we budgeted for employee benefits, and we just, instead of, Brandon used the analogy, paying for my lunch with my money. Yeah, I mean, that's all it is. I mean, we're giving them money to turn around and give back to the county into the benefits account. We just don't transfer that for whatever $1 million over to them in 12 increments. We just put that into the employee benefits account. I mean, they said that's what they needed for this year for employee benefits.
Based on 320.
but unlike,
I know.
but unlike the county departments that fall under statute, they can send it whenever they want without coming back to the budget board or without ever turning it back to the county. Currently, right?
Say that again, I'm sorry. Are you talking about like the special revenue funds?
No, he's saying that they are not, nor would they be subject to the same limitations that we are as far as being able to spend it in other ways.
You mean the jail?
Once they get it.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's just it.
Yeah,
We're funding
Whatever.
employees' benefits we can look at the count, I'm sure it's more than what they've actually had, and so we're giving them extra money out. Once it's over there,
It's there.
it's, I'm sure it's helping to fund raises and
Well,
overtime.
but I don't understand where the pushback necessarily would be if they truly think that that's what they need to fund employee
There
benefits.
shouldn't be.
There shouldn't be an
There
issue.
shouldn't be,
We
but-
keep it and just move it into there, and
Well,
we don't bill them on a monthly basis for it, so they're not gonna have the expense.
I'm hesitant, I mean, but like last time, in the last conversation we've had, they're asking for 264 premiums and their average, one of the questions I asked last time was their average employees haven't even been that high the whole year. And there's no way they're gonna get 100% utilization of the plan. You see what I'm saying? I mean, so let's say that so if they're asking, if we've paid for 264 slots of insurance this whole year, and their average utilization was 235 employees, not only have we've overfunded benefits.
But if they're asking for 320,
They're not, I did look, yeah, it's the two
They're asking for
sixty-four,
264.
down in their
But
health stuff.
Yeah, but you could still have a bunch of those people that never end up staying in because they're not there long.
You're right, they're asking for 320 employees, but
So-
they're asking to fund 264
benefits.
benefits. And what Brandon's point
Right.
is they're not 100%, and not everybody is on benefits, but they're asking for the same amount as they have employees. So, but there's two approaches to take there. Either you reduce the funding upfront for employee benefits to account for that, or you just approve the amount like we've done in the past, but we don't move the money over, we just put it into employee benefits.
well, I mean, that would be the same for like, District 2 general fund. Say we have 2 vacancies right now. I'm gonna ask for the benefits for that in my estimated needs because I fully intend on filling those positions,
No, and last time, like I even said, I'm comfortable with 264 because 264, 320 puts them at 85% utilization, which seems a lot more reasonable to me. So I don't mind the 264. My whole point was just that it just further substantiates the need in my mind to get all the money we put from the county earmarks for employee benefits to its intended destination. That's really all I was saying.
Or you need to take your example further, which was perfect. What would happen is, say you went all year and didn't fill the vacancies, now what's left there would be go right into
Benefits.
employee benefits.
Well, and I wouldn't have a problem with
Yeah.
that.
You had it if you.
Absolutely, right. But I would hope to think that would be there to fill those vacancies at any point in time.
Right,
That's why it
exactly.
would be in your
Yeah.
budget, yeah.
Right,
That's what we would be doing by funding them at 320.
Right.
We'd be doing the exact same
Exactly.
process.
Well, they are at, 264 is where they're at right now, so they're saying 100% of their people are on benefits. Which-
And that's always the weird thing about like a plan like this, or like, for example, when I used to have to deal with doing like the jail stay recovery fee, for example. There's no way that you can quantify that. What I mean by that is, let's say when we were trying to figure out what the jail stay recovery fee was, the daily incarceration rate. If you lower your population by 10 people, there's not a direct correlation to that, right? And I think the same thing is true of benefits. I mean, if your plan costs, 26 or whatever, however many million, $36 million a year, and you lower your plan count by 3 people, I mean, I guarantee your plan cost is still $36 million. Even though you technically lowered it by 3 people, your plan cost is still the same $36 million. I mean, that's kind of what we used to always argue with
Healthy
the jail.
people or
Unless you
whether
fit
they're
behind
sick
3
people?
people.
Yeah.
It depends on the 3. But no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not a 1-for-1 exchange.
Ever.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this is a good approach to move forward. I think to Brandon's point, you could always look at, running a percentage of, looking at the county and how many employees you have, how many employees are on health and how many are, on family and how many are on single, and you get a percentage. And then every department, you got 14 FTEs. Well, the average of, is 61% of is family and single, and you're just charged for, you know, whatever that percentage is. I mean, there's several ways that you can skin the cat, but I think this is a good starting point.
Like our general fund, we're at like 86% utilization for our general fund employees out of 171, 149 take insurance. So.
So we're saying that the money budgeted for employer premiums, the policy would be established by the budget board
I would say all benefits.
on benefits.
What's in your fringe account?
Including all
That
fringe.
expense category is only for fringe. You're not moving it to buy computers, you're not doing whatever, and then at the end of the year, instead of that carryover going in the big pot, that general fund carryover, you're just making the commitment that whatever is in fringe would go into employees' benefits to start the next year.
Here's, and maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but so say that this isn't what your original intent of your question was. I think what Jason was asking earlier, I mean, so let's say, for example, let's say somebody who is, like you said, somebody who's a staff, I'll just use my boss, for example. So let's say that my boss gets up there, and I don't think he will, but let's say he does. So he gets up there and he says, I'm not voting for this as the budget board. How can the budget board then as a whole say, well, we're not going to approve that transfer, even though you're allowed to make all of your own financial decisions with the money you're given?
It's the same.
If we don't.
It's
the
any
same
policy
thing
that
they're-
passes 5 to 3 or
But right now, there's that mechanism. If you have money in your benefits account that's approved in your benefits account, and you want to transfer it to any other area in your budget, it takes budget board action. The budget board can, I mean, right now, budget board can say no.
Right.
This is just putting a policy in that says, yeah, we are going to say no. You know, we always reserve the right that we can say no. This is just saying if it's related to employee benefits, well, fringe, yeah, the answer is going to be no. So you know that up front.
And the only reason I was suggesting that is because the way I've always understood the current policy is, for example, we don't send those transfers to the BET. So in my mind, I see that budget board as nothing but formality, nothing but. I mean,
It's a budget board county.
I mean, out of 6,000 votes, how many no's have there been?
Oh, there haven't been,
Precisely.
but there's some I've questioned.
Well, I'm not saying you have a question.
I just haven't said anything.
Do you see what I'm saying? I'm just saying what happens if we set down the road. Let's say 1 of 8 says, I don't want to do that. Is that something that the other 7 are willing to ramrod? That would be my only.
Well, a policy, I mean,
If the budget
in this
says policy
context,
says
the policy is only as good as the vote that you're about to have. You can pass a policy, and then
That's
the
true.
vote
And
comes,
then
the
ignore
next
it. Sure.
motion, the next agenda item,
Sure.
after you do that, is to transfer money, and they can do that, because they're not bound by their own policy.
Right.
In that moment when you vote, so that's,
Yeah, I mean, that's true. It would just be those that, it's just making the commitment to try to find a new way to get more money in employees' benefits and deal with.
but I'm just trying to write it down so I can make sure I'm understanding, not assuming anything. But so all fringe benefits, including the employer premium portion, would be by policy left to that. And if you don't spend it all because you have open positions or whatever, at the end of the fiscal year, that money would be transferred into benefits.
Right. Instead of right now, it goes back into one big pot and we start divvying it out again. But it would just be it'd be just another way. So now you've got the money that wasn't spent, your employer premiums, your employee premiums. It's just gonna be another line of kind of, you're basically just agreeing that, you know, we're gonna give it another little fund item down in revenues. Carryover from previous.
So if all that revenue, because you're gonna have transferred it by department when you have employees filling that position, because you're gonna have some revenue for positions you didn't fill, it sits there at the end of the fiscal year and it gets transferred. no, help me understand why you wouldn't just have it like we talked about in the first scenario of changing it, where that money's just set aside in the general fund to be transferred.
Jason, I
I
think
think
it's
mine
just
was more
because
mechanically right
it's
now.
mechanically, let's get it figured out how exactly we're gonna do that. And the
Not to say
problem
that we
is,
can't do that.
No, I see.
yeah,
Okay.
the problem is we're up against it about a week and a couple days to be able to make a recommendation to budget board to start the fiscal year. And we're kind of limited on time. So this change could effectively do the same thing without us having to maybe step in some holes unintended because we're rushing it through. And we can spend the next few months figuring out the right way to do it on the back end so that next year, maybe we can actually do it to where it's funded up.
Okay, yeah.
And logistically, like say at the end of the year, as far as carryovers go, there wouldn't be any issues, you know, just taking that portion and going right into benefits.
I don't think so.
Well, no,
General fund, I mean,
Right.
special revenue, you can't take theirs and move it to general, to employees' benefits.
but I think the test case comes up in the next few weeks when we are gonna almost certainly have to pass the hat, and we're gonna be asking people basically to give back that portion of their
Well,
budgeted revenue that they're
If-
receiving to pay for benefits that they're not gonna spend on benefits because they weren't full.
But when we passed the hat, when we were taking it, we were taking it from all kinds of places.
Right.
M&O, salary.
but I agree with
I'm-
John, I think that's a good place to start if we get to this point this year, is to do an analysis and see what all is left over in benefits and start there.
Look there first.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the clerk's office is gonna look and see what the estimated needs totals on employee benefits as well from a request.
Mm-hmm.
And we can compare that number to this 390 or whatever that is, and see where we're at there.
Mm-hmm.
And if we make this change and we wind up having to push $400,000 or $500,000 of employee benefit expenses into next fiscal year, making this type of a change that will increase the revenue into there may offset that so that we're not looking at a hole on top of a hole next year.
That's true.
So it could help us get us through the rest of this fiscal year as well by making a change like this.
Yeah, the only thing, I'm 100% for the only thing I'd like to officially put on the record is that we are mindful of, kind of to something you brought up earlier, the only way that we're able to, generally speaking for us, when we get to year end, we almost always have to move money into salaries. And it's not because we've overspent salaries. It sounds like it is, but it's not because we've overhired, let me put it that way. We've not overhired, but everybody that seems to quit has a $20,000 payout. All of them.
That's what I was using
yeah.
one caveat there. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think
So I think we'll see people that are around this table that are more likely to come back and say, hey, this is why I'm asking for an increase because of those payouts.
So Brandon, just help me understand just one question. Say you have someone with a huge payout. Can you just take that money from the money that was allocated to employee benefits and use that for their payout?
We only do that at the year end. We're obviously gonna try to keep.
They would have to have a budget board item. They don't just do it on their.
Yeah, we only try to do one transfer a year,
Just at the end, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe more than one category, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't always happen like that, but I think this year, for example, if I remember correctly, I think our benefits account, if we don't make a transfer in June, will be like 40,000-ish short in benefits, or 10,000 short in salaries and 40,000 long in benefits because of that exact thing.
Right.
When you've got family employees and you've got 4 or 5 of them in a hole for 2 or 3 months, you add money quick.
So are we recommending at least an initial recommendation for a policy immediately that the budget board would not allow transfers within departments from salaries and benefits to any other purpose? So that's kind of the down payment or the earnest.
It just benefits, not salary.
Just benefits. And then if they're willing to do that now, then that's a little bit of a test case that when we go into the next fiscal year, we're wanting to extend that for the whole year with this new paradigm that we're talking about. And then if that works, then we might change it where the money just gets directly transferred.
If recognizing there may be some extreme circumstance where you've got large payouts for long-term employees that you need to, there may be, an occasional need on that, but other than that, because that's actually, part of that is to pay for benefits and everything associated with that person over those.
Well, and I think too, I don't know the appropriate way to do it, I definitely think there needs to be a caveat other than extreme payouts. I mean, I think Hannah's talked about how she absorbed, some expensive fixes that happened.
Like capital
Like,
type.
So I'm sure she had to move money around, so I don't know.
Yeah, but that, then we start getting into, it's too much of a slippery slope and we're not able to accomplish what we're wanting to.
At that point, just come back.
Yeah.
Before that is,
It's still gonna be an issue if the budget work. Could still take that into consideration, it's just a policy, like you were saying.
Right.
They could turn around with that recommendation to do that.
I certainly get the mechanic.
I
I certainly get the
You're not
mechanic
gonna
side.
be witness suggest, but the budget board has the ability to override that, do as they wish.
Yeah, I would, personally, I would really only, I want this to be a stepping stone to the ultimate goal of just the department's never saying it. I don't want us to say, this is gonna come out horribly, and that's not how I mean it. But, I don't want us to say that we're doing this as a means to make sure the process works. In reality, it's not to get to the ultimate goal of just the department's not saying it. I don't want us to get halfway there, in my personal opinion. I want us to get all the way there. Because of all these things, because the cleanest way in my mind is just to straight from general fund, straight to benefits. That's my ultimate goal, and even being a proponent personally.
Well,
I'm fine with a 1 year, but if we do make a motion, I would love for somebody to make that motion with the caveat that this is a 1 year, and then next year, which I know we can't buy in future, blah, 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 but, that would be my stance. I want to get to a point where benefits gets all that money just straight from the.
Well, I
would.
would, more just about me and how I think than anything else, but to go ahead and make a recommendation right now because of what we're seeing with the potential hole in benefits, to not do any transfers. That's our recommendation. Don't do any transfers from benefits to something else until we know how we're gonna end the fiscal year. And by the next DET meeting, we could have a written down suggested policy, so it is thought through, and we're not trying to go back and watch YouTube to figure out what was said, and we're not sure. But that's a policy for the next fiscal year.
But this is gonna potentially affect our recommendation on the budget as well. So I think that if we're gonna do this as a stopgap, and that's kind of the way I see it, is what you were saying, was this is a way so we don't step in unintended holes to get to our ultimate goal, but we can still kind of quasi get there by doing it this other way for one fiscal year. Let's do it this other way while we work out the kinks, so that next fiscal year, it won't really be a change in our budgeting, it'll be a change in the mechanics on the back end. But we're still able to meet our goal of making a recommendation for the budget next Thursday to go into effect July 1st.
So if we do make that, is there a reason why we couldn't say, if let's say we make this recommendation and then we get on the phone with Tyler and they say, yeah, 30% of our customers do this. All the teachers that have the employer pay for the insurance do this exact same thing, for example. They say, yeah, just click here, here, and here, and it's done. Is there a way to start that mid-year, or does it have to be July 1 of next year?
Well, the system was already capable of doing it.
Well, that's what I don't necessarily know. Aaron, I'll have a conversation with you offline. Never mind. Because that's what I'm concerned about as well, but I've got something that I want to ask her. It's 3:30. There's no way that we're going to be able to get through everything
and hammer out a recommendation for next year's budget today. I was hoping we could, but there's just not going to be. So we're gonna need to recess this meeting. So Brandon, we don't have to have a recommendation this very moment. We can, they can make some phone calls this afternoon or in the morning or whatever and see. And if that is the case and Munis is like, no, man, seriously, this is easy. This is how you do it. Then maybe we can just do it from the get-go.
We can give them some time to talk to our elected officials to see if
Yes.
we're even interested in taking that type
Yep.
of control.
Yep, that would be very helpful, because if it's DOA, then it needs to be DOA in here. Well, I mean, it would be nice for it to be DOA in here, that way we don't spend a whole lot of time working on this when we can be working on other things, right? So,
Maybe the no transfers out of branches just through the fiscal year, just to try to help now. And then the new wave, July 1. We'll just see what we find out then.
okay.
And then John, what is the school of thought on when the COVID reimbursements are gonna just completely go away? I mean,
We're kind of, so.
I wouldn't count on it.
not in practice, but I mean,
So right now, we're looking at, say, this last month, right now is May. In April, we look at the claims paid for April, that's about 40,000, following for May. But those claims that were paid in April, they could have been received all the way back, or incurred all the way back a year before. So it's like we're receiving claims that could be incurred a year before. So I really think it soon should dry up.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen that. We haven't seen it.
I just got one point I want to ask you about. That's, I'm just kind of looking at your numbers are consistent pretty much year from year to year, with the exception of medical claims. But the biggest thing is prescription drugs. In just a short 3-year window, we went to
So it's
spending
high
double.
cost drugs. We're the
Yeah.
most, we have the most.
You had to bring that up again?
Yeah.
Sorry.
You guys know what the
I'm
answer
just
is.
looking at it going, everything else is
It's his first time.
I know, I'm just looking at it going.
Oh, no.
Marcy, would you like to?
Let's talk about that now.
Yeah, or another hour.
Exactly.
I know, I'm sorry, but that's the only thing that's really out of line with everything else.
Yeah, like all the high cost drugs on the market. Like on that.
I know that's what it is.
That's what it is. And high utilization, we have an older population, takes a lot of drugs.
La drugs, la drugs.
We know what it is.
But, yeah, sorry, hey, are some of those generic track in the not too distant future? None of them.
Of course.
No, they've got a special feature where it won't be for a long time.
Too much money.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
Somebody's making money.
Okay, what's everybody's thoughts? Do we want to go through some more here, or do we want to come back?
Well, let me just ask what's left. Are we just going through the rest of these amended? Is that what we need to do at this point?
So I've never brought employee benefit budget.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time.
Yeah, we received it earlier, so you're good to go. We may need some more stuff on it. Albert and Jennifer, if you guys could, can you get some numbers for us as it relates to the total amount of employer premiums that have been requested on estimate of needs?
Yeah, I've already started.
Just
Right.
broken down, special revenue all together, and then general fund all together. And then the trust
And all
would
the
be
others are just-
on general fund because it's funded via general fund.
Sure.
I think that would help all of us moving forward.
I think I got, oh, sorry, talking out loud here. I think I got more than one county clerk general fund in my packet. Is
You
that,
would have, there was one attached to the agenda, but then Cassie was sweet and had it printed out for us too.
Okay.
They're the same.
Okay, do we want to go ahead?
Unless you had it for a
speaking of-
previous meeting. We had it with our last, they had it last meeting.
Speaking of county clerk, do we want to go ahead and do that one real quick?
Yeah, let's.
Let's receive those, and then maybe the ones that had some fixes from the clerk's, from the county clerk's office, maybe we can run through those. That way, hopefully, we can get to the point to where when we meet next time, we can start having conversations about a recommendation. And we will still have a couple from Kelly Thomas next time that we need to do as well, but those should be fairly easy. All right, Jason, are you doing these or?
No, Albert.
Albert?
Yeah, let me get 'em out of my pie.
Like 5.
Which one are we starting
This
on?
one is, 170.
Now, you guys presented this one before, right? Are there changes on this one?
Okay, she's saying yes.
Okay.
Yes, this is the one we're purchasing.
Yeah, we sat down with Marissa and did that detail and changed M&O, we changed all that stuff.
So yeah, as far as the, salaries go, we,
Wait, which one are you on?
this is, sorry,
I know, but what, 170?
oh, 170. Do you have it?
Got it. I just wanted to make sure that.
Looking at me like, need something to say. That's a first.
Alright, so as far as salaries, for the coming year, we did a decrease in salaries of 33,350. And then we kind of went through and looked at each one of our other ones, like, fringe benefits, travel, make adjustments there. And then, so then, as far as on the travel, we decreased our mileage there by 2,500. Car rental, we added there 1,000. And for registration fees, we had 5,000 last adopted budget, but we decreased that by 3,000 for this go around. So.
Keep going.
Yep. And as far as our M&O, we went through and kind of did a line by line item and see what we needed, kind of did a deeper dive into what those expenses were and what to kind of cut back on that. So as far as our printing and binding, we had 6,000 in the prior budget, but we reduced that by 1,250. Advertising, we increased that by 200. Our notaries, we increased that by 250. Our memberships, we had was at 8,400, but we decreased that going forward to 4,000, so decreased at 4,477 there. Our telecommunication services and books, we took that off and didn't include it for this coming year. And when let's see, one we had here was the ESL stipend, which was at 10,800 for the 23-24 budget. So we took that off because we no longer need that. So, and then with the maintenance agreements, office supplies, there's an increase of 16,000 there. We kind of rolled our office supplies, the next line, 54 through 52, and then 54 through 54. Kind of rolled that into the 54 through 51 because there were just extra lines that all tied into. And then our professional services, an increase going forward of 16,100 there. And training education, an increase of 5,000 there. So, and as far as capital outlay stayed pretty much the same. So.
Albert, what is your professional services?
This this one here.
Yeah.
You recall.
Is that your Geiger?
Is that your other?
Geiger and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, Crawford's on a different line.
Yeah.
So I was assuming that might be that.
We did a lot of consolidation because we merged with purchasing real Inwest. So some of those codes, you'll see a lot of positive and negative because purchasing was using a different code than we were. And we made the decision as to which one to go forward with. And that's why you see a lot of the negatives and positives, especially even with the cell phones, et cetera. So we chose which one to go forward with.
Okay.
That's what a lot of that movement is.
All right, any questions?
Yeah, Albert, the only thing I was gonna bring up again, I mean, y'all may just be just gonna eat it like I was on mine. But, like under the elected official, her salary would be 143,937.50. And just so you, and then I don't know what I don't know what chief deputy makes, but the elected officials are at least 143,937.50. So it's about 8,000 short. On your,
Elected officials.
if you look at the salary comp sheet.
Yeah.
Scroll down. Up there. That top number, that 135,087, that's like 8,000 short of what she actually makes.
On the right side,
Yep.
that was the amount we were told that she has.
It'll go up in January.
Well, even,
No,
well, she's on a special
she's on a
election.
special election, so she's already won now.
And not only is she on a special election, even if she was, she'd be at 138,937, not 135. So it's only 5,000 less.
Yeah, we absorbed it because we
Okay.
haven't asked for an increase in the elected officials since it changed.
Okay. So that,
But are you wanting to ask for it now?
I just wanna make sure it was right and don't want to read it.
I think you're asking for an increase of $12,450 for that, and I think what Brandon was saying was that's not the full amount. So were you guys wanting to ask for the full amount or just for partial?
That's not what she gets paid.
Yeah, and then looking at this kind of made me remember, I was gonna bring this up the other day when we were looking at another one. As we're looking at these, we need to make a mental note on the elected official ones, because if the budget, if you can't absorb that increase in your budget, then we're gonna have to fund that at the higher amount if you can't, if there's not a way to find that you can fund it, right? So whenever we take out, usually this time of year, what we'll do is we'll take out new positions and salary increases. But on the elected official, that is guaranteed, there's no discretion. Now, on increases for chief deputies and anybody else, that's all discretionary, so that can go on the other list, but we've gotta make sure that we're tracking the elected official portion, because it's no longer, May language for most of the elected officials. There's 3 that are still under May, but all 3 of them are gonna change in January to shall language, that those salaries change. So we do have to make sure that those are funded.
Yeah, that was my point. Since Marissa was elected under a special election, she doesn't fall under that.
Do what?
She doesn't fall under that May
But
language
in
anymore.
next year for what?
It shall. So, and then the other thing I was gonna ask too, I mean, for the chief deputies, kind of to your point, I know when we went around the table and asked for those increases, I don't remember, did every department get an automatic chief deputy increase
No.
back then? Some people didn't ask for it, but some people did, right?
Right.
Correct.
But everybody who asked got it. You
Yes.
see what I'm saying? Okay. Do you see where I was going with that? Just because, like, hypothetically speaking, if you all had asked for an increase on the chief deputy, I don't think it'd look very good on our part if we said, no, we're just gonna be elected, because that's the language, just purely because of time and place. We gave everybody else a chief deputy one, but not the elected, you see what I'm saying? So that would.
Yeah, I'm not advocating whether we should recommend or not. What I'm saying though is that they are 2 totally different situations.
Right.
One we have to, the other we don't. So, anyway.
Yep, sorry. Yeah.
Any other questions? And then for our 150,
You said 1150?
1150, yeah.
Yeah, just throwing stuff around willy-nilly.
Alright. So pretty much with the 1150, we're staying the same as the previous fiscal year. No changes there.
Does anybody have any
Wait, still
questions
for
on
two.
this?
I'm sorry?
Still for just 2 people, right? Across.
You're self-employed, 2 people?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, your right-hand side says number of requested position 0.
Last year versus this year.
No, hold on. We don't have, we're not paying any of those. 1150.
I was told this is how this is how it's all rolled up on everyone's and that we use it for whatever. When I look at the actuals, it's mostly all M&O.
Yeah, that's just our M&O. No, we don't have any employees getting paid out of 1150.
You have it for
But
this
you
year.
have, that's all you have is.
Well, you have budgeted salary dollars in there.
Yeah.
That's all you have is salary and benefits.
Yeah. Do you know, Chris?
Well, I mean, this is special revenue. So the 208 is just what's in there.
Mm-hmm. But that's M&O. But you're not running payroll through 1150? But you're not paying anyone?
Right.
Y'all plan on using it at all this year? 1150? Or are you just plan on letting 208 sit in there and carry it over?
Like, it's being used, and when I ran the analysis as far as how it was last year, which is the exact same, this is what was asked for, and it was M&O and all that. They're using the budget's being used. It's just.
But it's being used for M&O?
Mhm.
You don't have any M&O listed on this.
No, and in the future deep dive, that's one of the things Marissa wants for clarity, is eventually we're gonna sit down as time allows and go through and move it all to where it's actually, instead of just, Article 1, that it would be actual new breakdown. So this is how
What's
it,
there now.
when you look at it in the past, this is just how it's always been done on these accounts.
Well, but on this one, it's got reserves, 763,108.19, which is the amount that hadn't been spent for this fiscal year so far. But it's got estimated appropriations to carry forward at $0. So are you zeroing this account out before the end of the year?
It's appropriated every month.
Yeah.
Because
Based on fees.
it has estimated appropriations to carry forward, it's got 0, and then the only estimate it needs is for salary and benefits at total 283 for next year.
Cause what's the average appropriation, 40,000?
Well,
way more than that.
Yeah.
No, because they've been having carry
Yes.
forward. Their average
Yeah.
appropriation is about.
Yeah, it's because you've got March through June, 138,687. But it's
It
not
does come
showing.
across like you are gonna spend it all, because you've got it in reserves. That should just be your reserves for your expenditures, the last few months of the year. And then your carry forward, and then you just,
Yeah, there will be appropriations.
And then it looks like you're paying people out of it and you're asking for or, there's benefit money there.
We'll take a better look at that one. Special ed. Special ed.
It is.
All right, any other questions? Okay, move on to the next one.
1151.
And then 1151. Set up the same way as 150.
It's a time to stand. Oh, well, it didn't say that. It said stand up and move a little for 1 minute.
Can you guys the budget? And then, I guess here, we're planning on filling 3 positions. We pay out of 1151 here.
So, and the rest of, so you only have 3 positions you pay out of this account? Is that what you mean?
It looks like 9.
9.
9, okay.
Yeah.
But you
But
are,
then, yeah,
you are actually paying people out of this one.
yes.
Because over on the right-hand side, number of
Yeah, I see it,
requested
yeah.
positions.
Yeah, it's missing there now.
I don't know if I just stapled them wrong. Okay,
Another account.
yeah, I must have.
So this is what preservation done.
No.
Yeah, mine just backwards, that page is backwards.
Okay. So this one here,
Yes.
are you zeroing this one out? Okay, because it has no carryover appropriations on it.
That's useful to the expenditure. Yeah, okay, so yeah, we'll look at that one as well.
Sorry if they're on.
Okay, any questions before we move on to records preservation? Okay. This one here shows no carryover as well.
Yeah.
Need the appropriations.
There goes to the employee benefits.
You some letter to employee benefits?
It's restricted.
To employee benefits. I'm forcing it there.
So same thing here. We got 16 and the 23, 24, then for 24, 25, looks like we changed what I know that.
So do you have 17 or do you have 18?
Go back up. 16.
Because then you got one part-time and then at the bottom total you got 18.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that middle. Sorry, yeah.
So should that bottom number be 17 then, I guess?
Yeah, it should be.
Okay.
And then 17 on the other side since it's the same dollar amount.
So yeah, we'll make those connections.
So these are actually people being paid out of this?
Yes, the first
Okay.
Okay, Devilman Construction on 5152. As well as on the expenditure steps to carry forward.
Now, why would you not have M&O in this one? You've gotta have M&O for preserving records and automation.
There's not any in the
There's
budget.
nothing on there.
It's only salary and benefits in the budget.
I see that.
No, Carrie said there is M&O.
Oh.
And I was,
Okay.
I wasn't challenging you.
I mean, all three of those special accounts have it on capital.
Right.
In the,
Yeah,
in the expenditure report.
But then they've been zeroed
But
out.
then it looks like they're not gonna have it.
Right, that's just not carried over into the budget worksheet.
Being work in progress.
Yeah.
Pretty much ready.
So yeah, we'll work on that and update it.
I agree, Christie.
Say that loud.
She's ready. I said, I think that's enough for today.
Okay,
And I said, I agree.
that was a
We need a
second.
roll call.
All right. Okay. So,
You want any
looks,
more?
huh? No, I checked out an hour ago. Thanks, Cassie. She says I checked out the whole meeting.
That's what you were saying when you got here.
So, in an effort to have a recommendation for next Thursday, we're gonna have to come back. So I think we can recess this meeting, or we can call a special for the beginning of next week, whatever you guys think.
Next week, I won't be here at all.
So it sounds like that's when we need to take a.
Sure, yeah.
When is the room available?
At the earliest, tomorrow at 1.
Tomorrow at 1.
Or Thursday at 8 AM, 8:30, 9.
I am off the next 3 days, so I don't have anything on my calendar. I can come in and do this.
You're off, but you're gonna come in and work with us?
Yeah.
You knew we had to make a recommendation.
It's my daughter's graduation on Saturday, and I've got a lot of stuff that I've got to get done around the house. So I'm off the next 3 days, but I'm happy to come in. And so my point is, I'm fairly flexible because I don't have anything else on my calendar.
How many meetings do you think we'll need for to make a recommendation? If we did Monday or Tuesday of next week, is that, I mean, Michelle won't be here, but is that even enough time?
I think that's not enough time.
I don't know either. What if we do something Thursday? Like you've got a whole day to start your stuff. The room's available.
When's the room available on Thursday?
In the morning, because we have core services in the afternoon. Just starts at 1:30.
Second meetings all day Thursday, so.
Well, how about,
I have second meetings all day Thursday.
how about 1 PM tomorrow?
I can do that. I can have Janice sit in. I will have to leave like at 2:30, 2:15 for an appointment, but Janice can sit in. I mean, it's.
We can get all done in an hour and
We can.
15 minutes.
So you've
I'm
got
free all day
no
tomorrow till
flexibility tomorrow?
Oh no, Thursday I meant.
Or I meant Thursday morning?
No, I haven't HR stuff, so.
This
Yeah,
is more important.
I'm moving on.
We're gonna pull you off HR.
I mean, I'd gladly be out of that, so.
We kept Wednesday and Thursday wide open.
Well, can we do 1 o'clock tomorrow and then?
See what we get. I can have
Yes.
Janice sit in. I mean, it's.
I just always remember in my head Danny saying I need X time.
They need time to prep the. So,
I think there's still gonna be quite a few changes to estimates of need and.
We haven't even talked about sources of, I mean, we've gotta have that statement of revenues. We don't even know what we have to budget.
Right.
And I know exactly, they're gonna say, so how much is it, how much are we gonna start with in reserve? And we cannot answer that right now.
Yep, right. I think that maybe your resolution.
No, I mean, I think we should start tomorrow afternoon because, I mean, it's in all likelihood, we may need more than tomorrow afternoon. And if we wait until Thursday morning, then we've lost a potential day that we could have, which is tomorrow afternoon. So, and I mean, I can come in for, all 3 days if I need to. I mean, we need to try to get this done if at all possible. I prefer not to Friday afternoon because it's
Yeah, I'm off Friday.
finding stuff done.
You're all Friday. Yeah, Friday's bad for me too.
All right, so we got tomorrow and Thursday.
All my adult kids coming home.
Okay.
Oh. What time Thursday morning? Or do you just wanna wait and see? I think we'll need it.
Yeah, I mean, the decision will be made when we recess tomorrow, but I would say 9 o'clock. I mean, that, because we have until lunchtime, basically, so that would give us 3 hours or so.
They probably don't meet till 1. What time do they meet?
They meet at 1:30.
1:30.
So, okay, so we could go till 1.
Sack lunch.
4 hours.
Katie's bringing lunch.
No matter what.
Randy will
It's
buy
right.
lunch with Katie's money.
Yeah. That's a perfect day to buy lunch. Murray won't be here.
Yep.
All right, so not to, go ahead.
I was gonna make a motion to recess until 1 PM tomorrow.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to recess until 1 PM tomorrow in the BOE room. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Y'all have it.